Welcome, everyone, to The Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. To my right is Shadow the Night Owl. He is the mascot and spirit animal of the channel. Some have accused him of being a cult leader, but he just helps me shepherd the flock of Black Sheep in Black Sheep Nation here. Earlier tonight, we did our web members only live stream. It's one of the reasons I'm a little late tonight. Also just recorded another video for tomorrow as well. But I see Matt, Wendy, and Mavs, and Bethany. How are you today, Bethany? Has today been a better day for you? And Miss Kim, welcome back, Miss Kim. How are you? Yeah, Mavs, you got us within the first 60 seconds, which is pretty good. Not too shabby. So today we're going to go over what I thought we were going over yesterday. I thought we were going over the Brian Entin special. But that wasn't what we were watching, actually. That was something different. Now, they're both on News Nation, but what we're going to play tonight is the special that I thought we were playing. So we got it tonight. Hello there, Julie Bug. How are you? Shadow, I did have a drink, but non-alcoholic. Aha! Shadow wouldn't have held it against you if you had an alcoholic beverage. You got it through the day. As the Shine Down would say. And by the way, I made it through the day. But as you're coming in here, please remember to like the video because likes are free. Spank that like button. Leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Hello there, Jen and Danielle. How are you today, Danielle? You just saw a coyote. Shadow likes coyotes, and so do I. Hello there, Rock. What's shaking over there? Regina, welcome. Sarah, how are you? I'm living the dream. We had a cool members only live stream. When you become a member or you gift memberships for other people, you get access to the members only live streams. And that's a Q&A where we talk about anything really. But it's a grand old time. Sometimes I help people with their relationship situations. I want to start giving people the opportunity to kind of join me in those, whether they want to be just audio or video too, but to talk through situations sometimes. And if the rest of the members are cool with it, I think it can be an interesting thing. But I only want to do it if the other members are cool with it, because again, it's their time as well. Hello there, Big Dog. What's shaking? As always, super chats, super stickers, gifting memberships, or becoming a channel member. Great ways to support the channel. And they help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl's soy-free hoodie snacks. And I want to thank you all for all the support I'm getting so far. And usually I go live between 10 and 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Tonight it's later, of course. But I talk about true crime, current events, and psychology. And I use my unique experience with mental health, addiction, being on the autistic spectrum, narcissistic abuse, and narcissistic family systems to give my unique insights on those things. Hello there, Orange. How are you? Rooster, how are you there? It's about the storm here. I opened the window and it's windy. A very wacky Wednesday, except it's Thursday. Trying to find out how much I owe for being towed. Probably a couple hundred, honestly. 185 to 200, maybe a few hundred. No like groups? What do you mean, no like groups? When midnight hits, it's Wendy's birthday. Midnight in what time zone, Wendy? Eastern, Central, Pacific, or something else? So. Right on, Jen P. Shadow and I and the rest of the flock of Black Sheep are glad to have you. Everyone welcome Jen P. to the Black Sheep Nation here. She's been a lurker that used to watch the replays, but now she's joining us for some lives as well, which is cool. So Eastern time, my time zone, Wendy. How about that? Hello there, Nanny. How are you? Congratulations, Rocksteady. It is no easy feat to be clean for a year. Montana, French Montana, welcome. Living the dream, Rooster, and so is Shadow. Let's see. Eastern, I'm in Connecticut. One day there will be another real shadow in here too. Don't worry about that. So let's jump in here to this video here.
For more than 90 days, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has left law enforcement baffled. Who kidnapped an 84-year-old woman in the middle of the night? Tonight, we're going through all of the clues, the evidence, and the leads. Then we've brought together some of the top minds in criminal profiling.
It makes more sense that there would be at least 2 people involved. I think it was another motive.
They've been studying the case for News Nation and are ready to share their findings. But before we get to that, let's go to Tucson, Arizona, February 1st, 2026.
Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues.
Good evening, I guess. We're here on a search and rescue mission, we hope. But we're looking for a missing person. Miss Guthrie is 84 years old and is not of good physical health. And so naturally have some great concerns. The scene at the house also has some concerns for us as well.
What is it about the
It's like a docu-movie here about Nancy Guthrie.
scene that concerns you?
You know, I don't want to get into those details. I would just tell you that it's certainly a grave concern to us, just what we see there, and we'll continue to look.
So Sheriff Nano says it's a grave concern what we see there. But Kash Patel, as we heard him say to Sean Hannity, he refused FBI help, according to Kash Patel. Now, it's not according to Sheriff Nano's statement that probably his lawyer or some PR firm made for him, but it is interesting to note.
I think we're all wondering, can you confirm that this is Savannah Guthrie's mom?
This is Mrs. Guthrie's mom, yes.
And maybe this isn't even the CW version of this. Maybe this is the News Nation version. I don't know.
The Catalina foothills in Tucson, Arizona is a beautiful part of the country. There's mountain views, desert terrain, and it's a peaceful neighborhood. This is the house where 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie lived for most of her life. It's where she raised her children, Cameron, Annie, and Savannah Guthrie, an NBC Today Show host. But it's now the scene of a chilling crime and a mystery that remains unsolved.
And our thoughts and our prayers are with our dear friend and colleague and her family this morning.
The morning of February 2nd, news of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance was everywhere.
The Today Show host, Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old.
At any moment, the Pima County Sheriff's Department will be giving an update on Nancy Guthrie. She's the mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie, who has been reported missing in Arizona.
Now, the cool thing about this breakdown is it's going to cover everything from the very beginning to the present. So it gives us an opportunity to discuss things as they come up in the documentary here, or the special, whatever you want to call it.
When Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos spoke to the media, one thing became clear. This was not a search and rescue mission. Nancy Guthrie didn't just wander away, she was taken.
We believe now, after we've processed that crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime. We need her back. We need to find her. And time is very critical.
If I'd gotten called out on this, I'd treat it like a homicide from the beginning.
Retired Detective John Bueller has more than 3 decades of experience in law enforcement, most notably investigating the disappearance and murder of Lacey Peterson in 2002.
But you have to work it from that aspect at the beginning to collect the evidence that you will need if you find out later it was a homicide. Because you can't go back. It's kind of like produce. It's going to spoil.
The timeline investigators believe is this. On the evening of January 31st, 5:32 p.m., Nancy traveled by Uber to her daughter Annie's house about 4 miles away. 9:48 p.m., a family member drove Nancy home. The garage door opens. 2 minutes later, the garage door closed. At 1:47 a.m., Nancy's doorbell camera disconnected. Then at 2:12 a.m., the doorbell camera software detected a person on camera. 16 minutes later, at 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker app showed the device disconnected from her phone. By 11:56 a.m. that morning, February 1st, Nancy's family checks on her after learning she didn't show up to a gathering with her friends to watch a church service. They called 911 7 minutes later.
So 7 minutes later, Nancy's family checks in on her 11:56 a.m. Arizona time. 12:03 p.m., Nancy's family called 911. So that means what? Annie Guthrie called 911, 12:03 p.m. Now the question is also, okay, 11:56 a.m. they check on her. What time did her friends tell someone, oh, by the way, Nancy's not here? What time did that church start? In New York time, except it's in Arizona time. So let's do the math, right? So if there's a service at 10 a.m. in New York, that is either 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. in Arizona. If it is 11 a.m. in New York, that is 8 or 9 a.m. in Arizona. So if that's the case, they didn't let her family know for a couple hours there. But we have to figure out what time that church was. Let me rewind for a second, see if he said.
Evening of January 31st, 5:32 p.m., Nancy traveled by Uber to her daughter Annie's house about 4 miles away. 9:48 p.m., a family member drove Nancy home. The garage door opens. 2 minutes later, the garage door closed. At 1:47 a.m., Nancy's doorbell camera disconnected. Then at 2:12 a.m., the doorbell camera software detected a person on camera. 16 minutes later, at 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker app showed the device disconnected from her phone. By 11:56 a.m. that morning, February 1st, Nancy's family checks on her after learning she didn't show up to a gathering with her friends to watch a church service. They called 911 7 minutes later.
So again, if that started at 9 a.m. in New York, that is 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. in Arizona, whether it was 2 or 3 hours behind, right? So maybe they would only watch a recording of it, or do you think they watched it in real time? I don't know.
The big thing for a case like this is you start at the victim and you look outwards, and you have to start looking at everybody that could be connected to her.
For Nancy Guthrie, that web is wide. She's lived in the same house for more than 50 years, raising her 3 kids on her own after the unexpected death of her husband. She worked at the University of Arizona.
Lori, no, it was 7 a.m. Arizona time, because Eastern is in front of Arizona. So if it was 9 a.m. in New York, that means it was 7 a.m. in Arizona, which makes me wonder, do you think they recorded it or would they watch it live? All right, so if it was 11 a.m. Eastern, then it's 9 a.m. in Arizona. So again, though, it's like, did they watch a recording of it or would they watch it in real time? I'm not sure. Maybe real time, right? I don't know. But say if it was real time, so that means about 9 to 10 a.m. would be the service in Arizona, watching the one in New York. So then what happened between 10 a.m. and 11:56 a.m.? Did they just not think the call? Did they not think anything was wrong? Did they not call them? I don't know. That would be interesting. Kind of be interesting to hear what her friends had to say about it, right? I don't know, Miss Kim. I hadn't heard anything about noon.
Before she retired, Her social calendar full of book clubs, mahjong games, and online church services with her friends. Nancy's even been on national television, featured in segments with her daughter Savannah, a main anchor on NBC's Today Show since 2012.
With Savannah, I'd be wanting to talk to her right away. Is there a possibility that maybe she did something in one of her programs that could have offended somebody? And did she ever receive any threatening letters or anything like that?
Hey now, we got a super chat here. Shadow notified me. Mike, thank you very much for the super chat, Shadow, and I appreciate it. Guthrie's never called church lady to see what new. That's where things get hazy for me, because we haven't really gotten the specifics. Like, we don't know what time the family called or what time her friends notified the family. I mean, we just don't know. I wish we did. I wish we did know. It put another couple clues together. I mean, and what would those clues really do for us? Well, we would know how long the family waited before calling 911, right? That's ultimately what that timing would do, right? So was it 2 hours they waited? Was it 1 hour? Was it 30 minutes? We don't know. But thank you very much for the super chat, Mike. Super chats are always appreciated. Everyone else, likes are free, as always. Make sure you spank the like button or leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Next stop here is the 50,000 milestone. Say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat, Black Sheep Nation. And thank you very much for all the support I've gotten so far. We did a members only live stream earlier. Becoming a member or gifting memberships give people access to that. And we always have a grand old time in there. Hello there, Linda. Welcome.
Good morning.
48 hours into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, there are still so many questions. Was this random? Are there any suspects? And where is Nancy?
What I'd tell you is, like any crime scene, we process this crime scene. We're tracking those leads, and we're doing things with evidence that you would expect us to be doing. We've submitted all kinds of samples for DNA, and we've gotten some back, but nothing to indicate any suspects. And we're like you. We're waiting for those returns to come back.
We noticed that the camera on the front of the house is missing. Do you believe the perpetrator purposely took the camera?
Don't know that. We're looking into that as well.
We know Nancy's back door was open. The inside, according to sources, showed no signs of an assault. And while it doesn't appear anything was taken, it's nearly impossible to know for sure. Nancy's abduction seemed even more chilling when News Nation cameras captured blood on her front doorstep. We were able to get up close.
So Montana in the chat says that Nancy's friends notified the Guthrie family, which would be Annie Guthrie, at 11 a.m. Arizona time, which means, well, the thing said 11:56 a.m. is when the family tried to contact Nancy. 12:03 p.m. is when they called 911. So I guess there's an hour there, basically, before they ended up calling. And notice Brian here, his tone. His documentary tone is much different than his regular interview, casual talking to us tone, right?
To the house right near the front door, and there is blood. There is a blood trail near the front door.
What do we got here? Shadow says we got Nanny Goat gifted the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect membership. Thank you very much, Nanny. Shadow and I appreciate that. Soy-free Hootie Snacks coming his way. And let's see who gets that one. Who will the Lords of YouTube Random decide gets that membership? Time will tell. Let's see. Thank you, Nanny.
Of Nancy Guthrie's house. As a detective, when you look down and you see that blood, what do you think?
To get blood to be dropping, that's got to be a pretty good wound. And so how did she get that? Did she fall? Did he strike her? Did he know that she was going to be coming home at that time of night?
One day after the sheriff said investigators had finished processing the scene, there is a flurry of new law enforcement activity at Nancy's home.
To me, when I'm looking at this, two things pop out. Financial reward possibility, or maybe there's some sort of animosity with her or the family over something from the past.
Then a shocking new twist. Two local Tucson TV stations revealed that they have received a ransom note for Nancy Guthrie, including KOLD.
How long was the note?
Not very long, Elizabeth, just a couple of sentences, I would say, a short paragraph, but enough in there to alarm someone who is reading it, I would say, especially obviously with the circumstances. And
Was there any communication protocol in the ransom note that you read?
Nothing whatsoever. If these deadlines that they've been given are accurate, then, time is of the essence, and they want their mother home safely.
Those deadlines demand millions of dollars in Bitcoin be deposited in a certain account. The first by 5 p.m. on February 5th, and the second one by February 9th. TMZ received what appears to be the same letter 12 hours later.
Sending something to TMZ, I get. Sending something to KOLD is very specific. Harvey, does that pique your interest as it does mine?
It was almost as if they wanted people to, some media outlet to talk about more than KOLD was, and they sent it to us. This is somebody familiar with the Tucson area and is familiar with the local station.
Later that day, Savannah Guthrie and her siblings appearing together on...
I'll tell you one of the ways that I honored my mother. I can't remember if it was for Mother's Day or her birthday. I think it was her birthday. But for 1 year, I wrote down one thing a day I was grateful for her for, and I gave it to her on her birthday. So 365 days of things I was grateful for my mother for. So that was one of my good birthday gifts for her. But at the time, my mom's not really into things like flowers and whatever. She prefers time and bigger things she would like. I remember I read that in a book, Mayor. I can't remember which book it was. Maybe it was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Shadow and I highly recommend that book, by the way. Life-changing book. But that was one of the ways. And again, this is something that husbands can do for their wife, wives can do for their husbands, boyfriends can do for their girlfriends, and vice versa. Indeed, Danielle. I know Danielle. Maybe one day I should tell. Well, it has to be someone's idea, right? You can't tell them this. It would ruin it. But if it's someone's idea to do it, it's cool. Yeah, that makes sense, Miss Kim. Mavs, that is no good at all that dealership would do that. I hope you never go there again. And thank you, Chatty.
Camera for the very first time in a video posted to Instagram.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. We are ready to talk. Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere.
How involved do you think the FBI was in helping her decide what to say, crafting those videos?
I would think they were right there next to her, but more than telling her what to say, telling her what not to say. Because oftentimes things that you say can cause problems.
Savannah's message and the safe return of her mother on the minds of everyone at a vigil at a church nearby.
I have a mother. I live 1 mile from Nancy, and I'm touched.
I'm staying just close by, helping my mom with some health issues, I just really appreciate the community, and I guess I wanted to show my support.
I know Savannah personally. I worked with her. We're all crushed. You know, we're so worried for the whole family.
Everybody is very loyal to Savannah because she's from Tucson.
Yeah.
And if anybody's listened to her, she always is delighted to mention Tucson.
It's taking a toll on us. You know, we're you know, we wake up in the morning going, is there any news? And we're just praying to God that it's good news.
Keep burning, baby.
Coming up, a bluff or kidnapping for ransom.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you.
The clues left in the note, with all eyes on the second and final deadline, as investigators race to figure out why Nancy.
To have a targeted victim like this, a gal in her 80s that's taken out of her house at night, for what reason?
A chilling image of the suspect emerges.
There's just a lot of things that seem off with it.
If you were the guy, if you were that monster, you should be worried.
As searches and operations unfold across the state.
We're in our car, and there is an active SWAT situation happening right now.
Bombshell revelations from a law enforcement insider.
We're hiding your identity right now because you could get in a lot of trouble for speaking out this way.
And for the first time, the nation's top criminal profilers combine their expert minds to take on the mystery.
Something went terribly wrong. I think it was another motive that they went in for.
And that's part of what we were watching last night. I thought that was the special, but apparently it wasn't the special. It was like maybe bits and pieces of it, or they used bits and pieces of that from yesterday in this special. But now I'm also a little confused because I don't know if what we're watching right now is the CW special that they also are letting News Nation use and calling it a News Nation production, or is it different? I don't know. Maybe the chat can help me out with that.
The president, as you all know, spoke directly with Savannah yesterday and told her that the federal government is here to help, and our hearts and our prayers are with Savannah and her entire family as they search for her dear mother.
As the clock ticks towards the first deadline, the FBI is now running point on the investigation into the ransom letter and reveals why it's been taken so seriously.
Yeah, the ransom itself, one talked about an Apple Watch and one talked about a floodlight.
Key details about the location of Nancy Guthrie's Apple Watch, reportedly in an unusual place, and the destruction of a floodlight that many believe only the kidnapper would know.
There has been no proof of life. And there was no other demands within that letter. So they're still waiting for communication.
The Guthrie family makes another plea for the person sending the ransom note to make contact.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom.
When the ransom notes started coming in, what did you make of those?
I would be very suspicious of any Bitcoin demand that doesn't have anything that documents that Nancy survived the abduction.
All right, so we are following that breaking news out of Tucson, Arizona, as the Pima County Sheriff's Office and the FBI announcing a new note in the Nancy Guthrie case.
6 days since Nancy Guthrie was taken from her home in the middle of the night, local TV station KOLD announces it has received a second letter that appears to be from the same sender, but with a different message.
Is there any information in this latest note about Nancy's condition?
I wouldn't call this a ransom note. I know a lot of people were saying, oh, it's another ransom note. The first one I would categorize as a ransom note. This second one, not so much.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Over the weekend, there is non-stop action from law enforcement. They towed Nancy's car and appeared to take pictures inside Annie Guthrie's home.
Everything's like got thorns too, huh?
Everything's got thorns.
Search teams tackle the desert terrain in the Catalina foothills, a unique area full of windy roads and hills, vegetation and brush.
I would look at the vegetation. I would look at the rocks. You know, if rocks are disturbed, you know, something like that, you'd know somebody may have walked through there. So there's different areas. You look at different footprints. You look at this. You know, if somebody brushes up against it, it might tear some of the fabric.
At night, strict lighting rules mean the city goes dark, making it nearly impossible to see.
So let's have Chris, our photographer, turn off the light for a minute. I just want to show how dark it is here.
You just step into the brush a little bit as a pedestrian, you're going to disappear.
Yeah.
Like I could just boom in here. What was that?
Show us, can we go in just a little bit? I just want to show, Chris, if you just kind of go in just a little.
Yeah. You just kind of walk in, find a shadow, depending on how you're dressed, you know, you're just kind of gone.
What stood out to you when you were in the neighborhood?
If a car is coming down the hill, you're going to see the headlight beams illuminate the area in front of the car before it makes the turn. You can duck into the cactus before that car rounds and illuminates you.
Time is ticking on a ransom deadline this afternoon for Nancy Guthrie.
With just hours until the second deadline, the media frenzy is intense.
Hi there, everybody. I wanted to come on and just share a few thoughts as we enter into another week of this nightmare. We believe our mom is still out there. We are at an hour of desperation, and we need your help.
Coming up,
it's just crazy. It's just crazy that a person can disappear from a sleepy little neighborhood in the foothills of Tucson, Arizona.
strange internet outages and reports that the kidnappers may have been in Nancy's neighborhood before.
I'm getting ready in the morning and I saw him out there.
And the moment this case reaches a whole new level.
I'm glad that people saw what came to our door.
New leads in the race to find the suspect. We're in our car, and there is an active SWAT situation happening right now. But are investigators looking for just one person instead of two?
And that was February 13th. That was probably the pinnacle of the whole thing, where it was the closest time that Shadow and I had thought. The Shadow might not even have been born yet. He was still in an egg. But we had thought at that point that they might have found something, because they had all of their equipment out, all of the ambulances, these cars, unmarked vehicles, FBI agents, detectives, they were all out and about. And at first I thought, no, it doesn't seem like it's anything. The energy doesn't seem right. But as time went on, it kind of convinced me a little bit. And I was like, hey, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this is something. But then no, my first instinct was correct, because it turned out to be nothing. They detained Luke Daly and his mother, and then nothing happened. No sign of Nancy, no arrests, no nothing.
He's a bumbling idiot because he's been set up by the puppet master.
Desperation, the exhausting search for Nancy Guthrie entering a new phase after a second ransom deadline passes. The search for the 84-year-old grandmother now entering its 10th day.
It's been 10 days of confusion in the Catalina foothills. Seemingly no leads, no answers as to who took 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie in the middle of the night. Until a huge break. The FBI released chilling photos and videos of a masked man at Nancy's front door. He is described as 5'9" or 5'10" with an average build. He's wearing a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker backpack, carrying a gun.
And remember, folks, according to Kash Patel, FBI director, he called Google, and that's how they got this video. Sheriff Nanas wasn't going to be able to do it, according to Kash Patel. So Kash Patel called Google and said, hey, that Nancy Guthrie didn't have a subscription, but is there any way to get that video that was recorded before it gets automatically deleted? And Google said, sure, here you go. Here's porch cam footage, Nest cam, of the, as Maureen O'Connell calls him, the front porch phallic bandit. She affectionately calls him that. So, according to Kash Patel, we can thank him for this footage.
Gun in a holster and appears to try to cover or tear down the doorbell camera.
What did you think when you first saw those surveillance images?
Well, they're great photos, number one. I mean, they're fantastic because you've got a physical build there that you can use to exclude possible suspects.
This bombshell stunned everyone. The reward skyrocketed to...
Well, Lori, as of now, it's been completely nothing as of now.
$100,000. Law enforcement, current and retired, raced to try to identify anything from the images, like Bob Krieger, former homicide detective and SWAT commander for Pima County.
The photos, what stands out is, the way he's holding the gun, it appears like he's holding it in a support hand. The way the holster is on the outside of the pants, it looks like the gun is way too small for the holster. There's just a lot of things that seem off with it.
I wouldn't be surprised if this guy had prior convictions for violent crime. I don't see somebody going to do something like this if they haven't done something like this in the past.
Thousands more leads were generated. The images quieting rumors and accusations against those closest to Nancy.
I'm glad that people saw what came to our door.
Authorities asked neighbors to check their camera footage in the month leading up to Nancy's disappearance. Neighbor Aldine Meister called them back right away.
So this is my window that I'm getting ready in the morning, and I saw him out there. So I couldn't make out his face. He was in kind of street clothes, not shoes that you'd walk in, and he had a baseball hat really low, and he was kind of hunched over, and he was kind of looking around, and he just didn't fit.
That was on January 11th, the same day we later learned as this photo of what appears to be the same masked suspect on Nancy's front doorstep weeks before her kidnapping.
I told the FBI the day after they came here, and I discussed that with them. Yep.
What was it like when the FBI came?
They were young and just listening and asking a couple of questions and wanted to know if our Ring camera worked, and it didn't at that time, unfortunately.
Another twist in the investigation, with neighbors reporting that their cameras and their internet were not working the night Nancy disappeared.
We've all talked and, compared notes, and I heard the gentleman across the street, their dog woke up in the night. He also told me that their internet went out.
Here's what they're now focused on. See that small black device that was in the man's pocket? They're wondering if this could be a signal jammer, which the suspect could have used to cause an internet blackout.
The same night that the FBI released the videos and photos, News Nation got word of an operation 60 miles south of Tucson in a town called Rio Rico. A subject taken into custody for questioning. And this is Josefina.
Yes.
This is her house, and the subject is her son-in-law.
They went inside, they bust the doors from my house. They went inside and...
So this is the Carlos's mother-in-law. So Carlos is that first delivery driver that was detained. And Brian is talking to her now. And Carlos, again, is her son-in-law.
And took my son to the living room and had him handcuffed and then got him outside.
This is who they're looking for. Do the eyes look like your son-in-law at all?
No, not at all.
For those who had hung on to every development in the case, this seemed like the moment they had been waiting for. But hours later, the person taken in for questioning was released with no explanation.
He's absolutely an innocent man. It's really clear to me that he had nothing to do with it. I don't think they had any reason to think he was involved.
We're going to get to Brian Entin. He is live on the ground with breaking news. Brian.
We're in our car, and there is an active SWAT situation happening right now. 3 days later, another massive SWAT operation in the dark of night. News Nation saw the raid in a Tucson neighborhood unfold. 3 people detained.
the amount.
And honestly, I mean, a lot of people probably mistake it and say Ring. I never even heard of the brand Nest until this case. I'd only heard of Ring.
Of resources here is massive. But the next day, news from the sheriff's office once again stunned everyone. No charges, the people detained, free to go.
Do they have any connection to Nancy Guthrie?
They live in the same area. That's it.
And the search warrants, does that mean that you all believe the suspect could be close?
It's what happens in investigations, particularly bigger investigations, where they're so excited, and then it falls through. It's not the person. Nancy's not at that house. But that's part of the ebbs and flows of an investigation.
During this time, investigators continued going back to the house, putting up a tent, bringing out new tools. And TMZ says they kept getting more ransom notes. This time, the person claimed they weren't involved in Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping, but that they know who was.
The person begins by saying, look to the FBI. I don't trust you, and you don't trust me. And then the last thing he says, and I'll actually read from the note, he says that the manhunt of the main individual that can give you all the answers, be prepared to go international. To me, that can only mean Mexico.
Coming up, the search for Nancy Guthrie crosses the border as investigators hold out hope for a DNA breakthrough.
We know scientifically that they will leave behind traces of their DNA.
And as frustration mounts over a lack of answers, Law Enforcement Insider reveals cracks starting to show behind the scenes.
There was an immediate rush to judgment on what was happening at that.
I wonder who this guy is. It's clearly not Sergeant Cross, and it's also not former Undersheriff Rick Castiger. So who was this? This anonymous person? Ripping nanos.
And a shocking new theory about the person on Nancy's doorstep from our panel of expert profilers.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy that a person can disappear from a sleepy little neighborhood in the foothills of Tucson, Arizona.
Buenos días.
19 days into the search for Nancy Guthrie, we learned that the FBI had contacted Mexican authorities in connection to the case. Tucson is less than 100 miles from the Mexico border. That's about the same distance as Tucson to Phoenix. And while the Pima County Sheriff says there is no evidence that Nancy is in Mexico, we wanted to see if people there even knew about the case.
¿Escuchado usted el caso de la señora Nancy Guthrie que la secuestraron o está perdida en Tucson? He said that he's not aware of the case of Nancy.
Has you ever heard of it? No, never heard of it? No. Thousands of people come across the border walking and even on vehicles.
Omar Chiquette is a journalist in Sonora.
How easy would it be to bring someone in, like if you had kidnapped someone?
It's very simple. It's not until they have the alert of somebody missing, they start looking at the camera footage.
It's not just the proximity. Nancy Guthrie had a heart condition that requires medication. Medication, it's much easier to access in Mexico.
So again, a lot of people in Mexico didn't know who Nancy Guthrie was. So again, if I was the person that did this, I'd probably be going down there just for less exposure, right? But I also don't think that the goal was to keep her alive anyway. I think the goal was a hit. And I think the motive to punish Savannah Guthrie. That's what I think it was. Vindictive, revenge, punitive, something along those lines. But please remember to like the video out there because likes are free. Spank that like button. Leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Throw Shadow a like vest the same way Brian Hooker should have sent one to Lynette Hooker, but did not. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat here. And as always, super chats, super stickers, becoming a channel member, or gifting channel memberships. Great way to support the channel. And they help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl's soy-free hoodie snacks. And as always, thank you very much for everyone who's been supporting the channel so far.
Hay controlado.
What did he say?
Maybe you get good chances of getting whatever medicine you need here.
With no prescription.
With no prescription. But also it depends on the substance.
Officials in Sonora push back on any investigations or communications about Nancy being in Mexico. As the tension moves away from yet another theory, it turns to something more tangible, DNA evidence.
We put in 1 nanogram of DNA. See how I roll that back? And then this is what goes forward for DNA analysis.
With technology evolving, DNA has been the key to solving some of the biggest crimes.
We know scientifically that they will leave behind traces of their DNA. It's just a matter of locating it and finding it.
Investigators did find DNA in Nancy Guthrie's home, including hairs. The DNA was first sent to a private lab in Florida that worked.
Remember, Monk's intrigue yesterday was saying he thought there was a dolly or maybe a wheelchair or something to transport Nancy on. I give him credit for using his head, but I don't think that's what it was. I think it would just be more trouble than what is necessary to do that. Because I think also there was more than one person. And I think if there's 2 people, like carrying her around is much easier. But, you know, it's a possibility they used a dolly, but I don't think so.
Works closely with the Pima County Sheriff's Office. But the evidence itself is not cut and dry. Some of the DNA recovered was only a partial sample, a mixture of DNA, according to sources, and not viable for CODIS, the FBI's national database for DNA profiles.
So what I wanted to know is how many people were there? Because I'm showing you a nice mixture that has 2 people. These are called simple mixtures. When you get to mixtures of 3 and 4 and 5 people, those are called complex mixtures.
So does it just take more time when it's complex?
It can take more time.
Is that the issue?
Or it can take more DNA. And so you basically are at the mercy of whatever the suspect left behind.
Right now, at this very moment, the FBI is studying this DNA. An investigative genetic genealogy is already underway, tying DNA to a family tree to identify an unknown suspect. It's a process that has led to arrests in the Gilgo Beach murders, the Idaho murders, and the Golden State Killer. It also takes time.
Do you think it'll be a DNA that ultimately solves the Nancy Guthrie case?
I hope it is. I hope it is. Yes, I do.
The handling of the DNA involving a private lab as opposed to first sending it to Quantico is just one of the controversies that has surrounded Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos. On March 23rd, Pima County Deputies Union cast a no confidence vote and called for his resignation. Nanos has defended his work, his conduct, and his team. Shortly after, a source close to the investigation spoke to News Nation under the condition of anonymity, pulling back the curtain to the investigation and drama unfolding behind the scenes.
What would you say are the biggest mistakes when it comes to the Nancy Guthrie investigation, from what you know?
There was an immediate rush to judgment on what was happening at that scene, and it was that Nancy had somehow wandered off. And so they rushed to that judgment, stayed with that judgment, and then ran the investigation as if this was a search and rescue issue, opposed to a possible criminal issue.
From what you know, were the initial people who responded inexperienced?
From what I understand, the people that were there on the scene were not 10-year homicide detectives. They didn't have a lot of experience in homicide at that point, to include the supervisor, who, from my understanding, never investigated homicide before being installed as the supervisor for the homicide unit.
So the supervisor who first responded to Nancy Guthrie's house had never investigated a homicide?
Correct.
How is that possible?
Well, so you have decisions made by people that will install friends and people that can do stuff for them, opposed to people that are there on their merit and can do.
And this is another reason why if Kash Patel had superior manpower and superior technology, and there was no experience of homicides on the scene, all the more reason to let the FBI in there. But since Sheriff Nanos is vindictive and holds a grudge, and I think he wanted the credit, he didn't want the FBI to come in there and steal his glory, I don't think. So he refused it. He refused it for, according to Kash Patel, he refused it for 4 days.
The job correctly.
Do you get the sense right now that there's anyone that they're seriously looking at?
The people I've talked to that are still in the know on this investigation.
Julie, which two lines? Tire tracks? Because we haven't seen anything official about that, but what two lines?
Tell me that there's no direct suspect right now, no name on it.
Coming up, they've been face to face with felons, studied killers, and are some of the best in the nation at building a criminal profile.
If it's not a kidnapping or burglary and that's just masquerading for something else, what could that be? What could the motive be?
We've brought them together in one room with one objective. Who kidnapped Nancy Guthrie?
Has there...
Because I was thinking there could be tire tracks from the car that they used leaving, but Sheriff Nano said there was none. He said there was none. Doesn't mean there wasn't any. But I don't know what other lines or marks you're talking about.
Ever been anything like this? Nancy Guthrie's case is a case like no other. An elderly woman abducted. It is virtually unheard of.
Holly, the beef, we went over this before, but the beef that he had was in 2016, there was a RICO case against Sheriff Nanos in his department that the FBI was investigating him on. So they were investigating him on the misuse of funds in 2016.
So we brought together some of the world's top criminal profilers to try and crack the case.
It is entirely possible that this is not really the crime scene.
Dr. Gary Bucato, a forensic psychologist who developed the 22-category scale of evil.
This could be the work of one panicked individual.
Dr. Casey Jordan, a criminologist who's interviewed dozens of violent offenders.
A type of case that we've never seen before.
And Dr. Ann Burgess, founder of Modern Criminal Profiling, inspiring the show Mindhunter.
Do you think this is a burglary or a kidnapping?
So it was a burglary, and I happen to believe at this stage of the game that it is more likely than unlikely that the initial motivation was probably theft instead of kidnapping. I think that the abduction happened after the fact, after something went terribly wrong.
I think it was another motive that they went in for, and before long it went south. That's what I think. I don't think they were there to steal anything.
Burglary or kidnapping, Dr. Mercado?
I think it's important to bear some statistics in mind. There are only about 350 abductions that occur a year. The vast majority of them are committed against children. Abduction usually involves proof of life and a demand for ransom within 24 to 48 hours afterward. And
yeah, that was about, I don't know, maybe a month ago now. We actually went over an interview where Sheriff Nanos was being interviewed in 2016 about the entire thing. And I'll tell you, meet the new Sheriff Nanos, same as the old Sheriff Nanos, as the Who would say. And that's exactly, he was doing all the same tricks. But they basically went over how they thought he misused funds. One of his deputies or co-workers ended their own life over it as well. So it was a big deal back then. But ever since that, Sheriff Nanos has held a grudge against the FBI. And we partially knew this because former Under Sheriff Rick Castiger, he's the one that said that he has a resentment against the FBI.
it's resolved usually in about a week. If you're abducting a person for ransom, you would consider them precious cargo. They likely wouldn't be bleeding and without their medication. You would be treating them gingerly because they're worth an enormous amount of money to you. I don't think truly that abduction was on the table. If it was...
Well, again, depending on who you listen to, the New York Post said that Tommaso dropped Nancy Guthrie off and saw her go inside and then went home. Other sources said it was Nancy or Annie Guthrie that dropped her off and then went home. But we don't know for sure. I mean, we don't know for sure what happened after that. The only person that can collaborate that story would be Annie or Tommaso themselves. So we just don't know. Now, it would be very interesting if there was any kind of Nest footage about what was going on there at that time, right? Is there a Nest cam in the garage? Is one of the other Nest cams could it pick up on what was going on? As far as we know, there's nothing. Because there's multiple Nest cams, right? One's on the front door. There's multiple in the backyard. But I've always wondered, are there cams in the home? Are there cams in the garage? That would be very interesting if so.
Then it went very south, and I believe she may have expired. The other possibility that we must bear in mind is that the entire thing is masquerading as a burglary attempt with an abduction, where it's actually masking that somebody simply wanted to eliminate Nancy for personal reasons.
Nancy, Lori, we only know what Tommaso or Annie said, that they dropped them off. That's what they said. Now, in terms of evidence, unless you see them on the camera, then there is no evidence, right? Or can you use GPS to notice where Nancy's phone was at that time? You probably could. You could probably use a Find My iPhone and you can see where her phone was, right? Or whatever kind of phone she had.
Burgess, if it's not a kidnapping or burglary and that's just masquerading for something else, what could that be? What could the motive be?
Well, the motive, first you want to always ask who's suffering the most of this, who is hurt the most. And in this case, it doesn't have to be the mother. It could be somebody in the family. Somebody, Savannah.
Savannah. And she's haunted by that.
And she has.
Yeah.
I mean, it's her mother.
Because what happens when you target a celebrity or somebody tied to them is that forever, you look in the encyclopedia, you look up the well-known person, the name of the offender targeted them is attached in eternity. In perpetuity, you can't look up Abraham Lincoln without seeing John Wilkes Booth. And so you get this parasite quality that also can happen with some of these people. And I wonder also about that if attention-seeking and resentment of somebody's notoriety is not embedded somehow in the story.
Do you think that the person responsible for this has a connection to Nancy Guthrie?
Yes, I believe that in some way, whether it is intimate or passing, somebody has knowledge of her life and a comfort level with this place and that home that is suggestive of somebody that knows her. And I think there is some personal quality embedded in it. If this is a homicide, 92%, in some studies, 92% of people, of women who are killed know in some way the person who killed them.
I agree, yes.
You think it's someone that she knows in some way or that knows her in some way?
Knows her in some way.
Yes,
I don't
that's
think that, I wouldn't think that Nancy Guthrie knew this person. I don't think you'd have the crime scene that we...
So the other question, Lori, is how far away can the garage door be opened from the phone? Right, so the app shows it open and closed, but how far away can you be for it to still work? Can you do it a mile away? I wouldn't think so, but you never know. I mean, can you, with your app, open the garage door from like miles and miles away? Maybe, but I don't know.
know happened that she was bleeding from, so something happened.
I agree. This person knew her. I don't think she knew this person. Knew of her. And it could have been, we have to consider, it could have been somebody who saw her on the Today Show with her daughter Savannah, maybe not even have met her. Could have been an Uber driver that she didn't leave a big enough tip for. Could have been any of hundreds of service workers. I mean, she's been in this house since the 70s.
That amateur hour kind of quality is interesting also and suggests to me a difference in intelligences. Some schemer behind the scenes and this character.
And again, we went over this part yesterday, but Dr. Gary saying amateur hour. I don't know. I've always thought it was more calculated incompetence, or he's not as dumb as a lot of the former law enforcement and other professionals want to believe, in my opinion. I mean, hey, day 90, what now? And still no sign of him and no sign of Nancy. I mean, like I said, either extremely lucky or not as dumb as they think.
who was just sort of hired or asked to do this. I think we would all agree this is not a professional that we saw here. I also don't believe this person worked alone.
So you think there's more people involved?
I think there is a little group of people, and that's great, because the more people involved, the better for getting it solved.
As time has gone on, I have been more and more open to, and it's not a conclusion, the idea that this could be beginner's luck. Because sometimes the idiocy, if you will, is actually on your side, because we're looking for an organized killer. We're looking for somebody. It makes more sense that there would be at least 2 people involved, easier to remove the person from the house, easier to have a lookout, a getaway car, and all that. But it is not impossible. In fact, it might even be probable as time goes on and nobody rats each.
Okay, so with a Wi-Fi enabled smart garage opener, you could open or close your garage door from anywhere in the world that has internet access. Apps like MyQ or GoGo Gate allow you to monitor and control your door from another city or country, provided your home Wi-Fi is active. Now, considering that, do you think Nancy Guthrie had this? Do they think they had a smart garage door opener? And does the app guarantee you had a smart garage door opener? It just seems wild for them to have a smart garage door opener, but not even a Nest Cam subscription. Something doesn't add up with that.
Rats out the others, that this could be the work of one panicked individual who came in for one purpose, did not include hurting Nancy or taking her. And then whatever happened, did she have a heart attack? Did she fall and hit her head? I mean, Brian, it could just be the work of one person. I know that that's statistically very unlikely, but it is entirely possible. And
so to know for sure, we have to know what it was. Was it just an app that tells it? Or is it actually a smart garage door opener that can open it from anywhere? Because I don't know if they're synonymous with one another, or are they different? I don't know. We don't know what the name of the app was. So we just don't know.
Can't rule it out.
Dr. Burgess, do you think this is the only person? Or
No,
do you think there's more people involved?
No, but I just had a thought that person may have been eliminated also.
So the person we see at the front door could be dead.
That's correct.
Killed by someone else.
Bethany's on the ball here, and she's wishing Wendy happy birthday now that it's 12 a.m. Eastern. Happy birthday, Wendy. Shadow and I and the rest of the flock of black sheep wish you a happy birthday. Hope you have an amazing day.
The partner.
Killed by the boss.
Right, by the boss.
Yep.
Right. It was well planned. They've gotten away with it, and they pulled a type of case that we've never seen before, as far as we know.
I just think that somewhere hidden in here, whoever this guy is at the door, if he is caught, if he's alive, and is caught, he will lead down the spider web to the center, where you will find somebody who is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Coming up, our panel of experts complete their profile.
He's already on the radar in some way.
How close the kidnapper could be right now.
What did he say there? Wolves in sheep's clothing? Reminds me of Mike King from Profiling Evil's book, titled Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, and Dr. George Simon's book, In Sheep's Clothing. Dr. George Simon, I uploaded my interview with him yesterday, all about borderline. His other books are Character Disturbance and Essentials for the Journey, 10 Commandments for Character. So check out that interview if you haven't already.
Nation's top criminologists answer the big question.
Do you think that this case will be solved? Three of the world's top criminal profilers at a table trying to narrow down who is responsible for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. They agree whoever did this is not far away.
This guy on the camera, I think, is a local.
Yeah.
The people that know him are not going to be the local Boy Scout leader and the head of the church. This is going to be characters that are on the outskirts, the demi-monde, the people who have criminal engagement. And as I've also said, The guy has a very characteristic way of moving his body. And if you think of anybody that you know in a mask, you'd still recognize them in the mask. Somebody is...
In the good old days, all you needed was the code to the garage door or a key to watch their home. I wouldn't even like having to actually request, oh, can you please open the garage door? Like have I was watching someone's pets. I wouldn't like that. It'd just be like a nuisance.
Going to know this person's body movements and the way he looks locally. And I also think it's possible that this guy has been arrested before.
If you were working this case and you had to go to the agents and give them the profile, what would you tell them to be looking for?
I'm going to tell you this guy. I'm just going to tell you based on what I know about this kind of prowler burglar who, as Gary points out, probably has some kind of minor league record, but it represents a fraction of all the stuff that he's actually done. 27 to 28 years old, definitely lives locally, probably not there anymore. I think he was either eliminated by a puppet master or he fled. And I'm not saying he's Mexican, but it's the closest border, and that's where he would go. This is a guy who, on the day this came out, quit his job, left town, broke up with his girlfriend, changed his behavior completely.
Dr. Burgess.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add there is to look for anyone that wasn't working.
Yeah.
That was just doing odd jobs kind of thing.
What you're dealing with is somebody with some sort of cruel...
So all the parts about the garage door and what it's capable of, I mean, any investigator worth their weight in salt would be examining all of that, right? You'd be examining, okay, what kind of app was it? Who had control of it? Was it Nancy? Was it Annie? Was it Tommaso? What was the capabilities of the app and the garage and the smart garage door opener, if it indeed was a smart garage door? Like, just because you can monitor it on the app, does that always mean it's a smart garage door opener? I don't know. But it seems interesting to me that there could be possibly a smart garage door opener, but then not even a Nest subscription. I don't know. Again, but these are all things that if we were able to ask the questions of the people in charge, we'd be able to find out these answers. But they've been close-lipped. Or they've told us some, but I guess, at one of those Sheriff Nano's press conferences, some of this would have been the questions to ask. Like, oh, what kind of app was it? Was it a smart garage door opener? How do you know for sure that the person was there? How do you know it wasn't opened somewhere else? All interesting things, right?
Sadistic, scheming kind of personality. And you do not develop that kind of personality overnight. You tend to have a long history of being that way. Whereas it is true that they tend to be very cool under pressure like this. What makes them very not cool is when there are slights to their ego. I think they need to go around talking to people and saying, do you remember any kind of hot-headed, nasty, grudge-holding kind of egotistical guy who might have had some run-ins with the law? I also think if I had to make an educated guess, somewhere in this story, this individual also has dabblings with illicit drugs.
Yeah.
It is entirely possible that drugs are on this.
Yeah.
I think based on the profile.
I think he's high right there.
Right. I think the drugs are involved, and I think that if this person got any money out of this, where would they spend it?
Do you think that this case will be solved?
It's more likely than not. I'd like to see it solved. The only way I think they'll solve it is if they get DNA and find her.
Dr. Jordan?
I agree. It will be solved. If it's solved, it will be solved by accident, by either finding and recovering remains, or by somebody committing another crime and having their DNA go into CODIS.
Yeah, I think it's likely that it will be solved, but I don't think it's going to be very quick. My sense is that behind the scenes, experts are speaking with the law enforcement, and they're probably thinking a lot of the same things that we're thinking, and probably have some people in mind, but are holding that close to the vest, would be my guess.
One of the reasons so many people are invested in the Nancy Guthrie case is because it just doesn't make any sense. Who would take an 84-year-old woman, a mother, a grandmother and friend, a pillar in her community, a community she loves and that loves her back? A friend described Nancy in 2 words: wise and kind. There's an ache for answers here in Tucson, and for justice, and for the Nancy Guthrie mystery to come to an end.
Yeah, we're definitely living in the very future world with all this technology. The apps and the AI and all of it, we are living, I mean, the pace of technology growth is extremely rapid. And maybe we should finish watching this, what we tried to watch yesterday, but we couldn't. Do you think I should do it? Or do you think YouTube's going to crap out on me again?
Start getting more into the truth of the matter. Because if this were truly an abduction or a robbery, it
All right, folks, deja vu. This is what we were watching last night when YouTube decided to say, screw you. So, should we finish watching it? Press 1 if yes, 2 if no.
would look very practical. More happened here than was necessary. And so I just think that somewhere hidden in here, this person, whoever this guy is at the door, if he is caught, if he's alive, and is caught, he will lead down the spider web to the center where you will find somebody who is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Do you think that the person responsible for this has a connection to Nancy Guthrie?
Yes, I believe that in some way, whether it is intimate or passing, somebody has knowledge of her life and a comfort level with this place and that home that is suggestive of somebody that knows her. And I think there is some personal quality embedded in it.
Do you agree, Dr. Bridges?
I agree, yes.
You think it's someone that she knows in some way, or that knows her in some way?
Knows her in some way.
Yes,
I don't
that's
think that, I wouldn't think that Nancy Guthrie knew this person. I don't think you'd have the crime scene that we know happened, that she was bleeding from, so something happened.
No, I agree. This person knew her. I don't think she knew this person. Knew of her. And it could have been, we have to consider, it could have been somebody who saw her on the Today Show with her daughter Savannah, maybe not even have met her. Could have been an Uber driver that she didn't leave a big enough tip for. Could have been any of hundreds of service workers. I mean, she's been in this house since the 70s. She has had people, landscapers, roofers, repair people, people changing her HVAC filters. And they go in and out of that house. They ask to use the bathroom. Of course, she's going to say yes, right? They felt comfortable enough and had knowledge of the house. But
remember, folks, please remember to like the video because likes are free. Spank the like button and subscribe to the channel. And by the way, I haven't been saying this enough, but tell a friend or 20 about the channel while you're at it. Say, hey, there's an awesome flock of black sheep there. There's this guy named Jared and Shadow that are the shepherds of black sheep. Might as well come in there and say hello. How about that? How about them apples, as they would say in Goodwill Hunting?
I don't have any evidence that they really had a beef with Nancy herself. All right. And I would not even be surprised if they knew in passing Nancy Guthrie, but did not even understand that she is the mother of Savannah.
So you think it's possible that the Savannah Guthrie component may not even have been
It could
part
be
of
a
this?
red herring. It could just be the world's weirdest coincidence. And we've seen stranger ones. It seems unlikely, but we have to consider, because we keep looking for somebody who has a beef with Savannah or a beef with Nancy. And sometimes it's like we interview people. I loved, Anne brought it up the last time you were talking about the grudge collectors. And we just saw it, of course, with the Brown MIT shooting. We saw it with, with the Idaho dentist, right? Spencer Tepe. And I've interviewed many, many prisoners who have long-standing grudges. So it could be somebody who Nancy was not even aware of had a beef with her, or that she offended them in some way.
Do you think the ransom is real?
I mean, to be perfectly frank, no. I think what happened with those notes was either an opportunistic, parasitic person who was taking advantage of a situation, or somebody that knew what really went on but was tossing red herrings out. My feeling, as heartbreaking as it is to say, is that the victim is likely deceased, and they were either attempting to collect money anyway or collect money in some way, but sending those notes had a cruelty then to it. I mean, do you guys agree?
I'd say it was more greed than cruelty. I just think that they have no concern whatsoever about the feelings of the Guthrie family. But if it's like a Hail Mary pass, look, if I can call TMZ or a news thing and put this thing out and I get $6 million it's worth a try. It's worth a try.
So I agree with them. I don't think the Ransom notes were real. I think it was more of an opportunistic person trying to take advantage of the situation.
It didn't work as far as we know, but I mean, the bottom line is why not try? There are so many cyber predators out there that I'm surprised we didn't have more. And I think probably 2 or 3 of them are the work of completely different predators.
Well, speaking of cases, in terms of precedent, that story reminds me a lot of the kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby, who I believe died when he was being removed from the home. The profiler John Douglas has suggested that when the child was taken in a duffel bag, coming down the ladder, that the death occurred, and then he tried to, if it was Hauptmann, some people don't think so, tried to collect the money anyway. Not to mention attachment forever to a famous person, which is a little bit of a secondary motive that sometimes happens. Because what happens when you target a celebrity or somebody tied to them is that forever, you look in the encyclopedia, and you look up the well-known person, the name of the offender who targeted them is attached in eternity. In perpetuity, you can't look up Abraham Lincoln without seeing John Wilkes Booth. And so you get this parasite quality that also can happen with some of these people. And I wonder also about that if attention-seeking and resentment of somebody's notoriety is not embedded somehow in this story, in the dynamics surrounding this story.
I think if that were true, we would have seen a lot more cat and mouse game in this.
It's true. It's possible.
But one of the problems we have is just legitimizing the communications.
Right.
Because it's just so easy now for anyone to send an email, an encrypted email to TMZ, and how much manpower and hours and resources is spent just trying to figure out which of these is legitimate and which one isn't.
Well, and why would the ransom notes be sent to the media? That didn't make a lot of sense, I don't think.
Which is why I think they're not legitimate.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a real.
No, I think they just wanted to get it in the media. Yeah. I agree.
It was less about a real ransom and more about the attention, you think?
Yes.
Puppet master too. Look what I can do. I can turn the whole media on its head for the next 24 hours. Look, TMZ is taking over, and they're it's like, look what I can do. You are the marionette master, and the media is the strings, and then the public is the marionette because we're all scrambling for the information. It's very power control initiated when you do hoaxes like this.
The one note that was very puzzling, and I believe Savannah said in an interview that she thinks it's authentic, is the one where there was almost an apology that saying something like, "I'm sorry, we didn't expect her heart to be that weak," that kind of thing. And I found that to be very out of character with the type of person who
would do this. Yeah.
And
that's a piece of information that was out there in the news, that she had a weak heart. So I think that was just, as you say, the cruelty of a hoaxer.
Unless there are multiple people. And it depends on which one made the comment.
Yeah.
Right. But I think when we put our brains together about it, put our minds together on it, I think we wind up with something that is likely in one of two buckets, right? Either an abduction attempt, financially motivated, that went south.
Kidnapping.
Right? Kidnap. Good old-fashioned kidnap, right?
For ransom.
For ransom.
Yeah.
That didn't work out.
Yep.
Perhaps she passed away and they figured, well, now what, And the second possibility being what I've called an elimination murder, where the entire thing.
But what would be the motive? What could Nancy be an obstacle to that somebody would want to? Because I call them expeditious murder, but you're expediently eliminating somebody. I'm trying to come up with a scenario where go ahead, spitball on this. I'm really curious.
It's complicated because, I think the big ones based on the statistics would be money. Somebody, the old who benefits, right, financially. We have to wait and see. The second possibility is she knew something. She was a witness to something that could have gotten somebody in a lot of trouble. Another possibility is she was an elderly woman and that she was a burden in terms of caretaking. That's a possibility, although I don't mean to cast aspersions on anybody involved in her caretaking. Right. It's just a common reason why there's an elimination of a person. And another idea is that there may be dynamics in play in terms of some grudge or some reason why somebody was furious at her or resented her, and she may not have even known it.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Burgess, you've talked about retribution.
Right.
Could the retribution have been towards Savannah and they take it out on Nancy?
Yes, and I think and that works because it does make the person that they really are angry at feel terrible. And I think that Savannah has said that. So you have to, and it doesn't have to be Savannah. It could be somebody else in the family. We don't know.
It's just so and I love your countdown of the reasons, but I can't get away from the fact that Savannah has tremendous resources. So her mother should not be a burden to anybody. Yeah. There would never be any concern of, and if people needed money, they could get it from Savannah, right? But the demands don't seem to be coming from whoever eliminated her. So I get where you're coming from. I guess the biggest question is, if you were doing this to hurt Savannah or somebody in the family, wouldn't you want them to know it? So in the criminals I've dealt with who are revenge and retribution motivated, they want you to know this is payback. So revenge might be best served up cold, but what good is it if they don't know it came from you? Right? And that's so no one's taking credit for it.
But could they be getting the satisfaction just by watching Savannah?
From an intrinsic locus of control, yes. Because when she gets...
And that's the thing about all these channels, right? They could be watching TV channels, Brian Entin, Ashley Banfield, Tony Bruschi, anyone, JLR, watching the coverage, and they can be getting some sadistic enjoyment from it, if that's what their goal was. Clearly that could be happening. And I've always said this too, haven't I? The people that did this could be watching these very videos. They could be in the chat. They could be in the JLR's chat, any chat you can think of. They might be there.
On TV and starts crying and saying, I blame myself. If that fulfills the personal need of seeing her suffer, then that would absolutely work. But usually they want you to know why. Because you stepped on my toe, because you'd be shocked at how people can hold the grudges they're just looking for a reason to get back at somebody, hypervigilant for offense. And usually they want you to know. They want that moment where they're like, this is because of what you did to me. And we're not seeing that. Now, there's a lot of self-control to keep that a secret.
Right. Or they want her to have to go back and think, who could be doing this?
And more psychological torture.
Absolutely psychological. Yeah, could be.
Well, to me, the evidence suggests that if there is an elimination going on here, I think, first of all, it's important to emphasize that there's been a clearance of the closest people to her. I think the burden possibility is the least likely in the list. My sense is that it would have been one of the more pragmatic, like financially driven of the reasons for doing it, and the emotion. Money. Right. It's interesting. And then the emotion stuff sort of leaks out accidentally, more than that being the overt reason for it. But the reality is there have been a number of cases of that all throughout even recent history. Even in the Murdoch case, we saw the staging of an outsider coming in when there was more of an internal reason for homicide. It's also important to remember, as I've said, I keep saying in a few places now, if this is a homicide, 92%, in some studies, 92% of women who are killed know in some way the person who killed them.
That sounds about right. 92% of women that are killed know the person that did it. That adds up.
And that's important to understand. The odds are she knew this person.
But is this
in some way? But they're usually not 86 years old.
And you all agreed that this is a case unlike anything you've ever seen. So is this such an outlier that we can't rely on the statistics?
I mean, there's a reason why there's 8% that isn't in there. But when that happens, it's usually because the person is randomly targeted for something, for example, like sexual motivations, which I do not see here. Anna and I are both people who have specialized in that. And
No, I don't
What are
see
your
that
thoughts
at all. And usually, if it is, the person is left in the crime.
Remember, folks, like a month or two ago, we used to get some wild chats, some wild messages in here from people acting like, oh, we did it. Like, this is what we did. And remember that chat? Not all of you were here, but they were getting very specific about exactly what happened. And I was like, oh, I wonder. Because here's the thing. We can't track them. Like, we see someone's username. I mean, how would you even go about reporting someone or even exploring it and deep diving it, right? We wouldn't be able to. You could say, hey, YouTube, there's this username. I took Nancy, and can we please examine this? Can we please investigate this? And they'd be like, what do you want us to do? It's just a troll. Because that's the thing, though, right? Trolls give all the people that might be serious cover. Because now you don't know. Like, the first thought that you see someone doing that, you first think it's a troll. But it might not always be a troll. It might not. Wink, welcome there. This is so frustrating, finding bones near her home. That turns out not to be her. Now, I heard there was other bones and things. I heard there was clothes. Is there new bones, would you say? Remember, chat, there was a person that was saying, hello there, Mace, welcome. They were saying that, oh, like Nancy lost too much blood, or this is like she hit her head on something on the way out. They were basically talking in the first person about the crime, like they were involved somehow. Now, of course, how are we supposed to know one way or the other? We're not, and we can't. But they were saying it. Like I said, people in the chat here, some of them probably saw it. I remember this. This was probably what? February? It was probably February this person was doing this. But it was interesting. It was kind of trippy. It was kind of trippy, the depth of the troll. They were really leaning into the troll. I'm surprised none of you, maybe some of you remember, but type 1 if you remember what I'm talking about. Because it definitely did happen. I'm not saying they were legit, but it was definitely someone that was doing it. Also, please remember to like the video, of course. Spank that like button. Throw Shadow a like vest the same way that Brian Hooker should have to Lynette Hooker, but did not. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And as always, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships. Great way to support the channel. And they help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl's soy-free Hootie Snacks. There's people here that would probably know. Or maybe they're not here tonight. There's 153 people here. Back those days, I had 1,000 to 5,000 people in the chat back then. Right. See, Rooster remembers, but it was like, probably a troll. But they were doing I was part of this in first person stuff. Danielle, you were probably here, Danielle. I could almost guarantee Danielle was here. But if it was Danielle's edible time, maybe not.
And we don't have that the person is taken, that the mother is taken out,
right,
is really unusual.
And it would generally be, in terms of victimology, if you're targeting an 84-year-old woman sexually, chances are it's part of a paraphilia or a perverse sexual interest. And you would tend to see a spate of those generally in a geographic area, unless somebody is like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, where they're targeting anybody who happens to be there when they break into the house, right? And it doesn't matter how old they are, because his victims range from children
BTK
to elderly.
Well. We see it.
It can happen, but I just don't think so.
No.
And I also don't believe that any of the DNA is coming from fluid or anything like that, semen or anything like that would have been like, I think that one is sort of off the table, right? And I think it's important what you're saying, that We don't really know if anything was taken. But if nothing was taken, I mean, it's hard to see this as some stranger who breaks into
The house was described to me as impeccable, that it was clean, that nothing was taken, there was no sign of a struggle inside.
Oh, a confrontation may have happened before anything could get that far.
Yeah.
So we know she's hard of hearing. And I know we run through, everyone's like, oh, you're speculating. That's what you do in this line of work.
Yeah.
My sense is that if somebody was in there for 42 minutes, it was partly because they were staging the flower pots with the door and the whole thing. It is important to remember that it is entirely possible, although far out there, it is entirely possible that this is not really the crime scene. There have been many cases in which people have staged blood and a break-in. It's entirely possible that she was eliminated elsewhere, and then somebody goes to the house and makes it look like she was taken from that home by leaving the door open with the flower pots and sprinkling some blood in a way that makes no sense because there doesn't seem to be anywhere else. That is a possibility that has to be considered. And then what you wind up with is a situation where this then shifts to a much more sophisticated and scheming kind of a character that is behind this whole thing. And so I have never taken off the table that possibility. It is less likely, because it does appear to me from the photos that I've seen that there is a clear trail that goes to what probably was a vehicle, a pickup vehicle in the driveway. But technically, I'm aware of many cases where people have staged blood.
Sure.
Yeah,
certainly. And it wouldn't be difficult. You would just need a syringe or something that can make droplets that look aspirated like that. Look like they've been perhaps coughing.
Yeah, because the blood looks like she coughed, like it was from coughing. Is staging a crime scene common? Does that happen?
Yes.
A lot.
Yes, a lot.
More and more.
And especially to the other motive is look what he's doing to the whole world.
Yeah.
Everybody's what happened, and he can enjoy that vicariously.
He gets satisfaction in
Absolutely. A person probably watching many of the podcasts.
Probably be watching this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's certainly a narcissistic element embedded in here, clearly, and probably moving beyond that into somebody with a more psychopathic quality, not to mention some sadistic cruelty in there. Whoever did this, as I said, there are signs.
You're talking about the
little
puppet
extras.
master.
Talking about the puppet master.
Yeah.
And the person at the door has this remarkable coolness under pressure. It almost makes me wonder if it's because she's already deceased and this is a staging scene. So the person has no reason to be nervous. It's already over. But another possibility is just that we're looking at a kind of psychopathic character who just, is kind of cool because the average person committing this crime, if you didn't have a lot of experience with it or didn't have that kind of personality, you'd see some signs in the physiology that you were a little anxious. This guy looks like he's taking a stroll in the park.
I'm going to be devil's advocate for just 1 minute.
Please do.
Because I actually think that this could be a beginner who doesn't know how to be stealthy yet. Because as you pointed out, the whole holster dangling there, I mean, it is Amateurville.
Amateur hour,
the whole thing. And the flora in the camera, either complete staging or idiocy, pure idiocy. So maybe.
So is the way he's pointing the gun, is it amateur hour or someone who's just trying to make it seem like it's amateur hour? Which one was it?
He's coming up. I just don't want to rule out the idea that this is a guy
like Ron Burgundy when the other woman comes on San Diego News. What is this, amateur hour?
Who, and I'm not saying this is his first burglary, but he's the opposite of professional. We talk about the confidence that you're viewing in that, and I see it too. He's not in a hurry, but I don't take it as he's done this 100 times before. Okay, there's the confidence of the toddler who just walks into traffic because they don't understand about speeding cars. And there's the confidence of Muhammad Ali getting in the ring because he knows he's just going to win. And I see this as almost the toddler walking into traffic. He just doesn't know any better. He does not understand that putting the flowers there is not going to stop his image. That, oh, well, the front door is locked. Let's look around and see if there's a key. Let's go into the back door. I truly think this could be a bumbling idiot, but maybe a combo of both. He's a bumbling idiot because he's been set up by the puppet master.
Well, it's an interesting point. But to be clear, I don't think he's done this a million times before. I just think he has a little bit of a psychopathic personality structure. I think this is somebody who has a long history of, criminal versatility. He's probably done all kinds of stuff that's a little bit, inappropriate. So
And Rooster makes a good point there too. We don't know, we have no idea if that gun was even real. I mean, right? We don't know. So a fake gun, who cares where a fake gun's pointed, right? So again, all of the law enforcement people, I feel like they have this thing in their heads where anyone who does a crime must be dumb in some way, or something's like ridiculous about them. And granted, they can be ridiculous, but just because someone has impaired empathy doesn't always mean they're dumb. Right? I think that's maybe one of the mistakes sometimes they make. I think they think, oh, they're all just dumb. And I don't always think so. I think there can be some smart criminals too. And the difference is when they just don't care because they have impaired empathy, they don't really have that piece of them. It's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this because I'll feel all this guilt and shame if I do this. Nah, not with people like that. But again, it doesn't mean they're dumb.
Socially or to get his needs met. Right. And I think it is very important in this case, as I've said in a few places, I think the people who will have encountered this guy, because I do think he's local, this guy on the camera, I think is a local.
Yeah.
The people that know him are not going to be the local Boy Scout leader and the head of the church. This is going to be characters that are on the outskirts.
Not so fast there, Dr. Gary, not so fast. The BTK killer was a church leader. And he was a very well-known serial killer. So we can't say one way or the other that he mustn't have been a church leader or a Boy Scout leader. We don't know that. Shadow says, now wait a minute. Wait a minute. The BTK killer tricked his own family. His wife and daughter, they had no idea he was a serial killer and he was a leader in the church. So not everything is as it appears.
The demi-monde, the people who have criminal engagement. And as I've also said, the guy has a very characteristic way of moving his body. And if you think of anybody that you know in a mask, you'd still recognize them in the mask. Somebody is going to know this person's body movements and the way he looks locally. And I also think it's possible that this guy has been arrested before. He's already on the radar in some way.
Not serious enough for him to be in CODIS.
Well, that's a good point.
That's it.
So a prowler, like
petty
which is why I'm not ruling out the larceny thing.
So
he looks like a low-life B&E burglar.
Let me go through and ask you, and there's a lot we don't know, obviously. We don't know what's happening on the inside. We only know what's on the outside right now. But if you were working this case and you had to go to the agents and give them the profile, what would you tell them to be looking for?
Almost impossible for me based on what we don't know. I need to see the crime scene. I need to know a lot of answers to my questions about egress and what evidence they have.
I'd have a ton of questions. If I can sit down with someone that was maybe named Sergeant Cross or someone involved in the case, not Sheriff Nanos, because we wouldn't get any answers from him. But like the person that's a source for Brian Entin, without giving us that, without telling us, yes, I'm Brian Entin's source, but getting to talk to him, right? And being like, oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Now that would be interesting. But they also probably have like a gag order too, right? Don't be saying anything. Now, granted, they've said some things anyway. I'm sure they weren't supposed to be talking out about Sheriff Nanos, but they did. Maybe that was because it was political a little bit. But I'd be very curious what their lines are. I mean, because at this point, what would they harm by telling us what they know? The only thing I can think of is if they tell us something that might make Annie and Tommaso more incriminating, they would think, oh, well, they're going to get harassed now. Maybe. And maybe that's why they don't tell us. Maybe. That's not a fact. That's just pure speculation.
And it's very possible that a lot of what we needed to know was if you will, bungled by releasing the crime scene back to the family within days. I always thought that was a misstep. And when you're trying to profile somebody like this, you have to just start with what is the motive, right? And we've talked ad nauseum about what the motives could.
Well, again, the questions would be, as Lori was saying, okay, well, what was the app on the phone? Was it the kind of app that you can open from anywhere, or does it have to be within range? Because that question would determine a lot right there. Because if it's the kind that can be opened from anywhere, then now you're really only trusting Annie or Tommaso's word that they dropped her off, right? So that would be the big thing. Now, if it's the kind of garage door that you have to open within distance, then that would give more credence to what Tommaso and Annie's story was, right? But that's a big one. That's a big clue in the case right there to me.
If this is not a kidnapping for ransom, for profit, if it is personally driven by a need for power, control, for making the family suffer, for some kind of masochistic thing, I mean, you are going to be looking at somebody with an antisocial personality disorder for certain. I'm going to tell you this guy. I'm just going to tell you based on what I know about this kind of prowler burglar who, as Gary points out, probably has some kind of minor league record, but it represents a fraction of all the stuff that he's actually done. 27 to 28 years old, definitely lives locally, probably not there anymore. Once the image came out, you would think like, oh, okay, now it's time for us to.
All right, got a super chat here from Big Dog. Thank you very much for the super chat, Big Dog. Shadow appreciates it too. How much does it play on getting guilty verdict? How much does it play on getting guilty verdict? What do you mean by that? Does anyone understand that question? How much does it pay on getting guilty verdict? I'm a little confused. You clarify what you're asking, I can answer it. But thank you for the super chat there, Big Dog. Shadow and I appreciate it.
To demand more ransom and get at it. I think he was either eliminated by a puppet master or he fled. And I'm not saying he's Mexican, but it's the closest border, and that's where he would go, just to get away. When that moment comes up and they're on that TV screen, they become like these terrified little rabbits, totally panic-stricken. All of the cockiness is gone. All of the confidence is gone. And I've interviewed so many felons who are just like, I always thought I could get away with it. And then when they...
Okay, so I get it now. So Big Dog saying that they don't want to say things because it could interfere with the guilty verdict or the charges they press. And yeah, that's a possibility. But also, one of the big things they already screwed up is Sheriff Nano's clearing the family. Because as former DA Matt Murphy said, only the DA can be clearing anyone. So that can get in the way at some point down the line or create more hurdles for the prosecution, right?
Came after me, I was like, oh my God, flipping out, racked with paranoia. And yet still he did not screw up enough for us to catch him. So I think we have to go back, instead of looking at what kind of personality does he have, to the grassroots.
Oh, look at this, Shadow. Thank you so much for the super chat, user. Late night soy-free Hootie Snacks. Because again, I caught Shadow watching some Clavicular the other day, and Shadow was like, Jared, I want to start looks-maxing. I want to start injecting myself with some peptides and maybe using some white powders. And I was like, Shadow, I said I should reach out to Clavicular and tell him, hey, from a person that's on the spectrum, I could probably help you out with a natural supplement routine, Clavicular. If only you were to listen to me. And maybe I'm big enough to reach out to him and say, hey, you don't need that Peter Thiel bastard. But someone like the Shepherd of Black Sheep could steer you in the right direction. How about that? Thank you very much, user.
Investigation. Please, anybody who recognizes his gait, his presentation, even in the mask, this is a guy who on the day this came out, quit his job, left town, broke up with his girlfriend, changed his behavior completely. That to me, the change of behavior would be inescapable when this picture came out, because no one expected us to get these images off of the deep web. Thank you, Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Burgess.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add there is to look for anyone that wasn't working.
Yeah.
That was just doing odd jobs kind of thing. You know, like you can pick up people at the local store to come do something.
Day
He'd probably
laborers.
given maybe $100, hey, go do this little thing for us and act kind of silly. So is there something that people would notice that not only, and then of course that they,
and occasionally I catch shadow watching all sorts of people. I catch shadow watching Nick Fuentes. I catch shadow watching Hassan Piker. I catch shadow watching Sam Harris. I got everyone. He watches everybody.
would look at this and say, oh, well, that certainly does remind me of so-and-so. He's young. I think that's young, but I think there's somebody else behind him. I agree that your puppet masters, where are you going to find him?
I think that if you think about the two main ideas that we're proposing, either an abduction for money that went south or somebody behind the scenes with a more nefarious motive than that, who is staging it to look like an abduction, where it's really just a homicide. One way or another, what you're dealing with is somebody with some sort of cruel, sadistic, scheming kind of personality. And you do not develop that kind of personality overnight. You tend to have a long history of being that way. If this individual is local, and I could be talking about both.
And I would agree with that. I've said anyone who did this at the least has impaired empathy. But it very well could be a psychopath, someone with antisocial personality disorder, maybe narcissistic personality disorder. I mean, if someone's willing to do a crime like this, what does that say about that person? I would say at minimum, impaired empathy, and they just don't care very much. Because if they did, how would they ever be doing what they're doing? It just wouldn't add up, right? By the way, please remember to like the video too, because likes are free. Spank the like button. Leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel while you're here. Shadow would appreciate it. And tell a friend or 20 about the flock of black sheep.
Both the puppet master figure and this individual that we see on the camera, I think are both local. Then what you want to think about is this. Those kind of characters, whereas it is true that they tend to be very cool under pressure like this, what makes them very not cool is when there are slights to their ego. What you tend to see is a long trail of people who will remember run-ins with a person who blew their top because you bumped into them on the street or shortchanged them at the store or something like that. I'm aware of cases where people like that will go back and kill someone who bumped into them on the street or said, you're talking too long on the phone or something like that, right? And so, we know even from physiology studies of people with those kind of personalities that the only thing that gets them alarmed are slights to the ego. They couldn't care less about risk to themselves, which I think is what you see on that camera. And therefore, if we take that together with the likely local quality of this individual, there is probably a trail of people who had run-ins with a jerk that they're going to remember having argued. And how many of those characters could there be in the neighborhood with a very particular gait that people might recognize and so forth? I think they need to go around talking to people and saying, do you remember any kind of hot-headed, nasty, grudge-holding kind of egotistical guy who might have had some run-ins with the law? I also think if I had to make an educated guess, somewhere in this story, this individual also has dabblings with illicit drugs. It is entirely possible that drugs are on the table.
Yeah.
I think based on the profile.
I think he's high right there.
Right. I think the drugs are involved, and I think that if this person got any money out of this, where would they spend it? Drugs, probably, sex workers, things like that. And there's another group you should be talking to.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet my life that this individual has engaged with sex workers locally and local people who are dealing in drugs, and therefore they should be questioned.
Bet his life that he would deal with sex workers. That really all depends, I guess, right? Would you guarantee and bet your life they were involved with sex workers? I mean, maybe. I mean, and if you include OnlyFans women, girls, like maybe that broadens it a little bit. But that wouldn't have necessarily been my first thought.
They're not going
Do
to
you all
talk.
agree?
Yes,
That's true.
but they're not going to talk.
Although a lot of money's on the table.
It is, but I've got to tell you, no amount of money is worth going to prison for years. Like $1 million in exchange for X number of years of your life in prison. I mean, they like money, but they also do not like prison, right? But why haven't we had anyone call in?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I buy the sex worker thing. It's not impossible, but it wouldn't be something I bet my life on. Heather, thank you very much for the super chat. Shadow and I really appreciate this. Night Owl Ninja. Yay. Oh, you see that, Shadow? You're the white ninja. The white ninja of the nighttime. So, soy-free hootie snacks for Shadow. He can't get enough. He'll tell you when he's had enough of soy-free hootie snacks. I've tried to come between Shadow and his hootie snacks before. Didn't go well. But thank you very much, Heather. You are awesome.
Yeah, with a tip that's panned out. Like, I agree with you completely, but I think that, everyone has seen these images and watched that video over and over and over again. I mean, it's viral. So why haven't people come forward?
Well, remember, we did hear thousands and thousands, I think they said.
Yeah.
Tips came in.
30,000.
And then zero, nothing.
Yeah. Nothing was
Where'd
legit.
they all go? Why didn't they could have run those through AI very fast. But then, no, it's going to take us forever to, go through all those. The other thing I would do is normally, if this was not Arizona, that you'd draw a mile and you'd look within that mile.
Within 1 mile.
Yeah.
Within 1 mile of your of this guy. But they have acres there, so maybe you have to go 5 miles to do. But he's in there somewhere, or he was.
You all seem to agree that it is someone who knew Nancy in some way, some sort of connection.
Was familiar with her.
And was a local.
Correct.
Yes.
And I don't think working alone. I don't think it's likely. I think, as you mentioned, it is interesting. We have to consider it.
You have to consider
But
it.
I think it's improbable based on a lot
Probability
of
does
crimes
not
I've
work
looked
for my
at.
theory. It's just that I've
Right.
interviewed people who have done superhuman things
Oh, yes.
with adrenaline all by themselves. Highly unlikely, but not impossible, so we can't rule it out. But I do think he's long gone. I think he's long gone. Fled the scene.
Or dead.
Or dead. Yeah.
Do you think it's possible this person could strike again, Dr. Burgess?
Not until this gets solved. He doesn't need to. I think he's getting too much out of this. But that doesn't say that he wouldn't do it again.
I think there's too much of a chilling effect. If he takes that risk, I mean, yes, he has internal needs that have driven this crime. I think he got in there and got a sense of power and control that he wasn't expecting. But if he does it again, the chances of getting caught and getting his DNA are incredibly high. And once we have his DNA in the system, and I do believe that's how he will get caught. So will he do it again? I think unless he's a serialist, I think he's going to be able to control any of his urges because he is totally cognizant based on how this took over the media for 2 months. He's totally cognizant that if he does screw up and gets caught, it's over. Not just for the crime he commits in the future, but for this one. And this is one that, I mean, Arizona has the death penalty. He will have a hard time resisting. And we've seen, and I don't think this is a serial killer, but we've seen them stop 15, 20 years. But if this guy's just a burglar or a henchman for the puppet master, yeah, he's going to stop because the chances of he's so far gotten away with it. And you do something else, your chances of getting caught are enormously improved. So if he has half a brain, he's found Jesus, turned his life around, and not doing any more crimes.
If we're right that there's a chef and a waiter, I don't think the chef cares very much what happens to this individual.
No.
This person was used.
Yeah.
And the idea is I couldn't care less. Go ahead, get caught on the camera. I wondered if the person set the guy up to get caught on the camera so that he would take the fall for it. It seems that somebody with a more intimate knowledge said, "Here are the facts. Go in and do this," and then this guy is the one who gets in trouble.
Do you think that this case will be solved?
It's more likely than not.
It's one of the first times we ever heard someone say not just a definitive yes. She said more likely than not. That is the closest to no we've heard yet when anyone's been asked that question in the professional world.
I'd like to see it solved. The only way I think they'll solve it is if they get DNA and find her.
Yeah.
Dr. Jordan?
I agree. It will be solved. If it's solved, it will be solved by accident, by either finding and recovering remains, or by somebody committing another crime and having their DNA go into CODIS, or maybe somebody who gets that intimate knowledge turning this guy or the puppet master in. But I don't think the investigation is going to turn over any of these big breakthroughs that are going to, leave you with a battering ram on a door and taking a guy out and going, "We solved it. We got our guy." I think if it's solved, it will be completely by happenstance and accident. Good luck.
Yeah, I think it's likely that it will be solved, but I don't think it's going to be very quick. My sense is that behind the scenes, experts are speaking with the law enforcement, and they're probably thinking a lot of the same things that we're thinking, and probably have some people in mind.
Great pool they got back there too.
But are holding that close to the vest would be my guess. And I think DNA is going to be very critical. I think the breaking down of the mixed DNA could take a long time and some very sophisticated methods. There are cases that can take a year to do that.
Longer.
It could take a long time, but if they're able to do that, to get to that sort of sweet spot of the percentage you need to build up a profile, then I think they'll use genealogical DNA and arrive at someone. But I don't think this is something that's going to happen, overnight.
If he belongs to a family that believes in getting on Ancestry and 23andMe, a lot.
But for that to even be a thing, you need to actually have their DNA.
A lot of people don't do it. Just would never. So.
And they don't know. We don't even know whose DNA they have. The DNA they have from those rootless hairs, they could be anybody. They don't know. So Rand Dizzle told me to watch this, although Rand Dizzle's not here. He said, "This video from Sleuth Intuition is a must watch," he said. Let's see what we think. Not today. Maybe yesterday. Crypto wrench attack theory? Or the Nancy Guthrie case, what was Porch Guy?
All right, guys, it says we are live, so welcome back. Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. We are broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. Today, we are diving into the Nancy Guthrie case. Today's topic: could this have been a crypto wrench attack theory? Could it have been? So we'll talk about what is the wrench attack. Some of you guys are like, what is this guy talking about? I don't remember them mentioning a wrench. We're going to watch a lot of news reports on other cases. That way we can learn about how these types of plans are executed, who they're targeting, how they're targeting their victims, which is going to play a big part in today's live stream. Also, we might focus on a case specifically. This one was at.
He talks slow, so we're pumping up the speed here. Sort of like our other buddy. What's his name? Brew Crew over 50.
Scottsdale. You guys might remember we covered it early on in the case. They mentioned some perpetrators by the name of Red and 8. That was an online moniker. Their online monikers.
I think I speak a little more quickly than him. But maybe one day we'll do some ASMR true crime or true crime ASMR with Shadow and Jared. And it'll be like whispering about Nancy Guthrie and D4VD and who else? Brian Hooker and Koberger and Corey Rishen's verdict, all sorts, Nick Reiner.
We're going to look at a few news reports on that. We might watch maybe 4 or 5 videos. And then we have some articles on how this all happens. It all starts with your information being hacked and leaked. So once they get their hands on information that you might have a crypto wallet, your name, your address, your password, all this information could be visible to them. And where do they go to find it? The dark web. So once you've been targeted on the dark web, then they put the plan together. Maybe they plan it out for a month. But what's interesting is typically with a wrench attack, you're dealing with a hacker mind. That type of psychology, I believe, in my opinion. That's where the term comes from. It's basically hackers, right? They're trying to hack your password. They're like, man, we've come to a dead end. We can't, we've tried everything. We can't hack into their computers and gain access to these passwords. And one of them says, well, why don't we just grab a wrench, kick down the door, smack them in the head until they give us the password. That's where the name comes from. So they call it a wrench attack. But it's a hack. It's born in a hacker's mind. Did you guys say the video is buffering? Hold on.
I think people can speed up my voice by putting it on the screen, but I don't think I can do it myself.
Are you guys buffering?
I mean, generally videos like this with a still image, they don't do as well. But it really depends. It depends on who it is, right? Live streams with a still image maybe don't do as well. But people like the Critical Drinker, they just have still image after still image, and they do very well. And the same with people like Dr. Mark Felton, if you're into history, or like the moon, where there's a video and like it's a little more in depth than this. But sometimes these videos can do okay.
Let me get an audio and visual check real quick. 10 out of 10. Getting a no. Okay, great. Okay, so that's how it happens, right? Your information is hacked, it's leaked, then it's put on the dark web, and then individuals like Red and 8, who we'll get into a little bit further down the line here, they target you. Then they put a plan together. But one thing that's happening nowadays is these types of people, these hackers, they're actually hacking people as well. They're hacking minds. What they're doing is they're catfishing people, usually young people. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of 764, operations like that. So what they do is they catfish these people. They gain access to them. They trick them into providing nude photographs, placing themselves in compromised situations. And then once the predator or the hacker or the predator has this delicate information, then they come out of the shadows and they say, hey, look, it's me. I need you to do me a few favors. And if you don't, I'm going to send this video, these photographs to your boss, to your teachers, to your friends, and I'm going to post it all over social media. And this is happening a lot lately. Like in the last 10 years, this has turned into kind of an epidemic. And a lot of times it results in self-harm, sometimes even people taking their own lives. Because in your mind, things are much worse than they are in the real world, right? In your mind, it's much harder to approach somebody of the opposite sex. In your mind, that challenge seems overwhelming. But in reality, you just go out there and make an attempt. Most times it turns out pretty easy. Not all the time. You're going to run into some failures. But typically, it's pretty easy to do.
Thank you, Nanny. And by the way, Van Dizzle, this is the video you were referring to, just so we're on the right page here. I'm trying to keep track of this. So the crypto wrench attack theory. So wrench meaning they attacked Nancy with a wrench? We'll see. We'll see what he says.
What's up, Nina? So I was asking the question on X if anybody has any kind of idea, recollection, knowledge, if anybody surrounding Nancy Guthrie ever mentioned that they had a crypto or a crypto wallet or a cryptocurrency account, wondering if that's how they could have been targeted, or if it could be unknown information and actually true, because their names could be part of a leak or a hack. Okay, so these people are hacking individuals, and they're sextorting them and extorting them and forcing them to go out and commit crimes that they themselves physically could not do or feel like they are unable to do. Or why should they, right? They're smart enough to trick these people. And it happens a lot. People are tricked into committing homicide by catfishers. Go look at the case of Darren Shillmiller out of Indiana. I think that was 2019. Does Arizona have a death penalty? Yeah, we do have the death penalty. You all know one that has been doing that evil crap to older ladies and got caught, done time for doing that evil people. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about that, what a wrench attack is, what it looks like, who's targeted, how are they targeted. We'll look at some articles on some of the leaking and hacking that's been happening.
I did see recently there was this old dude that got like tricked, or so he said, but there was someone that said, oh, you need to kill this person, and it was some scam, and he did, and then he got arrested for murder. Look that one up. I'll look it up now too, actually.
I think we should re-watch both pressers. I think one happened on the 1st and then another one on the 5th. We're going to watch both of those. We're going to watch a recent interview with Kash Patel, and then we're going to have a discussion. But also, I think we'll spend some time on right around the 10th of February, so 10 days after Nancy went missing. All of these FBI agents were, giving interviews and giving their theories. And all of them were saying, yeah, this is a robbery gone wrong. Textbook. Robbery gone wrong. They also mentioned how the porch guy kind of seems like an amateur. What is he doing with the flowers? Things like that. So they all thought it was a robbery gone wrong, and they all went public. I'm talking, and we're going to watch maybe 3 or 4 of those interviews. And then shortly after, you have Nanos that comes out publicly, and he completely says the opposite. He says, no, that's not our leading theory. That information didn't come from us. I don't know who's leaking that stuff, but no, that's not our top theory. So if it seems to be something extremely obvious to all these retired FBI agents, that come out and give their professional opinions, it all seemed to be clear to them. Right? This is robbery gone wrong. And the whole...
I don't agree there was a robbery gone wrong. And I don't agree that I don't think the ransoms were real either. Like I've always said, I think that it was a punishment for Savannah Guthrie. Someone was envious or they were upset with her for some reason. That's my thought. Now, again, I'm not completely ruling out a random possibility motive, but I think it has something to do with Savannah Guthrie because I just don't see what could have possibly gone so wrong. And then secondly, if you're doing this for money, of all the ways to get money, you're going to do this, something that can get you in jail for life, maybe even the death penalty. Like what? It just doesn't make sense to me. But here's the story of the guy who got scammed. William J. Brock, an 83-year-old Ohio man, shout out to Livin', was convicted of murder and sentenced to 21 years to life in prison in early 2026 for fatally shooting 61-year-old Uber driver Lolitha Toland Hall on March 25th, 2024. Brock, acting under the influence of a telephone scam, wrongly believed Toland Hall was involved in a plot to extort him, though she was also a victim sent by the same scammers. Insane. Key details of the case. The scam. Brock received threatening phone calls demanding $12,000 for a relative's bond, quote unquote, with scammers threatening to kill him and his family. The incident. The scammers used the Uber app to send Toland Hall to Brock's home to pick up a package. So the person who was killed was also being used by the scammers. When she arrived, Brock, believing she was part of the conspiracy, held her at gunpoint and took her phone. The murder. When Toland Hall attempted to return her car, Brock shot her 6 times. She was unarmed and did not pose a threat. conviction, Brock claimed self-defense, but on January 14th, 2026, a jury convicted him of murder, felonious assault, and kidnapping. Sentencing, in February 26, 2026, he was sentenced to 21 years to life in prison. And considering he's 83 years old, that's life in prison pretty much. So, that's a shitty thing for Mr. Brock there. And a shittier thing also for Toland Hall.
Ransom kidnapping part was very amateurish, right? Something happened. We came in there to rob Nancy. We didn't realize she had a heart condition. She passed away. We knew that either way she was still valuable. And we tried to salvage what we could. Donald says no. So what if the FBI was like half right? Like maybe it was a robbery gone wrong, but not in the typical sense. When you hear the word robbery, you think somebody like breaking into your home and they're carrying your TV, right, into some big van. Like, yeah, we got robbed. But what if they came in there to do a wrench attack on Nancy, right? Maybe they have access to Savannah's information, Savannah's husband's information. Maybe they have a large crypto wallet or a large amount of cryptocurrency that we wouldn't know of as the public unless you actually went onto the dark web, searched for the leaked information, like these criminals did. I think it is possible that they do have an account, a crypto account that we completely don't know about.
So the one thing, Wendy, would be they took her body. It just seems like adding up the risk way too much, right? Robbery gone wrong. So let me take her too. But that being said, if it was a robbery gone wrong and then they took her, it seems to be going pretty well for them, right? Now, granted, they've added so much risk, but I guess maybe they're thinking, well, if we leave her here, we're going to get in more trouble or we'll be caught. And maybe so. Maybe so. I just think I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around doing all this at nighttime, no less, for a robbery. Why would you do that at nighttime? You would think you'd want to go while they were gone, right? So wouldn't it make more sense to do this while she was at Annie and Tommaso's house? Take what you want and then get out of there? So I've always thought that. I think the motive was taking her is always what I've thought. Because I think Matt Murphy said this. You go during the day, you want things. You go at nighttime, you want the person. That's what I've always thought.
Maybe that's why she was targeted. Think about how easy it would be. You scare her in the middle of the night, you sit her up, and you say, hey, give us, transfer all of your crypto into our account. Or call Savannah and have her do it. We'll put you on video. It's kind of interesting because Savannah said in one of her public statements, she mentioned videos and audio can be faked. I wonder if there was some kind of contact made. 1:47 to what? Around 2:30-ish? Right, transfer this money or we're going to hurt your mom. Don't call the police. You have 5 minutes to do it. If you don't do it, that's it. That's a possibility. But what could have happened, or what's more likely, is she was startled in the middle of the night, roughed up a bit, and most likely passed away. So if the FBI believes that this is a robbery gone wrong, maybe it's not a traditional robbery. It was a wrench attack that went wrong. How do you salvage a wrench attack if you're extremely desperate? Now remember, the Scottsdale attack.
So a wrench attack is not the physical device, a wrench, but it's a version of a crypto scam. That's what a wrench attack is. I guess maybe I wasn't paying attention enough.
And we're going to get into that. Happened in the middle of the day. I think eventually they launched their attack around 4 p.m. Actually, let's get into that. I think we should start there. Hey, Super Chat, Green Eyes. Thank you so much. So excited. You came on earlier on from New York and seemed to always fall asleep waiting to the late lives. Yeah, it's hit or miss. I got to go when I can. And I felt like 6 o'clock. We were supposed to go live yesterday, and I moved it to 6 o'clock. I said, what the hell? I got about 2 hours right now. I better go for it. Okay, let's start with Red and 8. So this happened the same day.
Jackie, you are very correct. In 2019, Savannah Guthrie did interview Epstein's survivors. So this is what a crypto wrench attack is. A crypto wrench attack is a slang term for a situation where someone uses physical intimidation, threats, kidnapping, or violence to force a person to hand over cryptocurrency, passwords, seed phrases, or wallet access. So right off the bat, it's like, why would you target Nancy Guthrie for that? Of all the people to attack in a crypto wrench attack. The name comes from an old internet joke comic suggesting that instead of trying to hack strong encryption mathematically, an attacker could simply hit someone with a wrench until they give up the password. Good old the history of the word. In cryptocurrency, this became a real concern because crypto wallets are often controlled entirely by the owner. Transactions are irreversible. Large amounts of money can be moved instantly. There's usually no bank fraud department to reverse theft. Examples of wrench attacks can include home invasions targeting known crypto holders. So who's the crypto holder? Nancy Guthrie stacking sats of Bitcoin over there? I don't think so. Kidnapping or extortion, threats against family members, forcing someone to unlock a phone or hardware wallet. Common protections people use: keeping holdings private, using multi-sig wallets, separating decoy wallets from main holdings, geographic distribution of keys, personal security measures. The term is mostly associated with the broader crypto/security community and discussions around operational security, etc. So let's see. Let's hear them out.
Well, actually, it was January 29th. So earlier in the day, early the next morning, Nancy's kidnapped. So this isn't long after, or this is shortly before Nancy's kidnapped, so to speak. Okay, give me 1 second.
Right. So if you want cryptocurrency, like, why would you go for Nancy Guthrie? It just seems like an unnecessary step and an unnecessary risk to be like, oh yeah, I will take Nancy, but I'm going to try to bribe this other person or extort this other person that's not here using Nancy. I don't know about that one. I think what's also happening is, as more and more time goes by and there's no real leads or anything really that promising other than the two strands of rootless hair, people are coming up with all sorts of ideas, whether it's Monk's Intrigue, this channel, the JLR, any of them, right? They're just, the speculation can run wild. And when more eyeballs were on this case, the speculation was running even more wild. And people were basically ready to crucify Annie and Tommaso. And then for a time, they were ready to crucify Dominic Evans. And then they were ready to crucify Luke Daly. And it's just, oh my Lord. Like, people wanted their ounce of blood and they didn't get it.
Okay, if you cannot hear this, make sure you let me know right away in the chat.
Revealing that it was all part of a plot to steal cryptocurrency. Fox 10's Nicole Christine joins us live with more.
Yeah, good evening, guys. The neighbors that we spoke to in that neighborhood today, they say they were shaken up by this ordeal, but they were really happy to see these suspects caught so quickly. They added, though, that this seems to be a little bit of a scary trend where criminals are really honing in on cryptocurrency as a motive for burglary and even violence.
It's certainly eye-opening, and it's also incredible the way that different pieces of evidence will be.
See,
now, this is a different note, but this could possibly be a concern, right? You go to someone that's maybe a millennial or younger because they're probably the most likely to have crypto. But you go in there and you say, and you like hold them up under the threat of something and say, open your phone. Show me your wallets. Show me your Coinbase. Show me your fill in the blank. Okay. Give me your seed phrase. Give me this. Give me that. And once they have your seed phrase, then they can take your money. Or what they would probably have you do is send it to somewhere right in front of you. And then you have people there that divert the money to other places. I'm kind of surprised that kind of thing hasn't happened more often, honestly.
Creepy car, just kind of cruising around. But they wouldn't even know what to look for unless they actually captured the guys.
Piece together.
When Ari Parker left his Scottsdale home to run errands Saturday morning, he didn't think twice about this blue vehicle driving by. On his way home, he noticed what he thought was a drug-related arrest involving a blue Subaru in the parking lot of a nearby shopping center.
The trunk was open. There were supervisory police department vehicles there. And I thought, oh, wow, that person's screwed. I had no idea they were connected to the crime that happened here.
That crime, a reported home invasion just down the road from Parker's home near Cactus Road and the 101. According to court docs, 2 teenagers, now identified as Jackson Sullivan and Skylar LaPale, showed up that morning dressed as package delivery drivers, then forced their way into the home, restraining 2 adults with duct tape and assaulting them. Their motive? Robbery of $66 million worth of cryptocurrency the homeowners allegedly had. According to police, the teens met recently and say they were extorted by a person called Red and a person called 8.
Red and 8. So these guys didn't even really know each other. Here, let me.
How did they know they had 66 million? How did they know? Were they told by this person, Red and 8?
May have marked on the map where they're from. Both from California. So what's the connection to California? I know that Cameron used to live there. Derek Kalia is from there. But what else?
Let's go, Green Eyes. Come to thee. Flock of Black Sheep, Green Eyes 2026. Yes, you. Green Eyes 2026.
So it's interesting. These 2 boys are right here. Does that mean whoever targeted them is from this area? Or is the person who targeted them from Tucson and trying to bring them from California? Kind of like some out-of-town hitters. Unwilling participants. They drove 600 miles, you guys, to commit a wrench attack in Scottsdale, and it failed. But remember, they don't want to go out and commit this wrench attack. They're being forced. They're being extorted by Red and 8. Who's Red and 8? And if Red and 8 failed during the day on January 29th, did they try again later on, early the next morning? Remember, 9 hours later, Nancy is being kidnapped. Is this like, was she a backup plan? Is it somehow connected? We're talking about this basically the same.
Oh boy, was it Tim Dillon trying to sell scam mortgages in Long Island user? It's like the Lufthansa heist. Jimmy! Jimmy!
They get busted. 9 hours later, Nancy's being ripped out of her bed in the middle of the night. Were they going to demand cryptocurrency from her there? Remember the ransom, they wanted crypto. Hey, Miss Doglover, thank you so much with the super chat here. People will think I'm crazy, but I'm very intuitive. I see things in my dreams. I had a premonition the night my brother died. Last night, I dreamt that Nancy was pinned to the ground on the porch, and there were 2 people. 2 people, it has to be at least 2, right? I'm not bringing a walkie-talkie in my pocket if I'm not going to use it to communicate with somebody. What's the point of having it? It's definitely 2 people. That's why they prop the doors open, right? It's 2 men carrying a body or a person. You take the top half, I'll take the feet. And they want to get out of there.
Look at this guy. People will think, I'll let you read this too, what I'm reading here. People will think I'm crazy. This is from Miss Dog Lover 1644. People will think I'm crazy, but I'm very intuitive. I see things in my dreams. I had a premonition the night my brother died. Last night, I dreamt that Nancy was pinned to the ground on the porch, and there were 2 people. Oh? Which porch? The porch on that night? And there were 2 people? Well, not beyond the realm of possibility.
So if this is a robbery gone wrong, and most FBI agents believe that, and the only person pushing back is Nanos. Nanos is the same guy that wouldn't accept any help from the FBI. So don't attribute to malice what could easily be attributed to incompetence.
Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice what could be attributed to stupidity. That's Hanlon's razor.
Remember, serial killers weren't working with law enforcement, right? Oh, make sure you hide all the evidence, right? Of my serial killings. No, they're just looking at these idiots and these incompetent officials and saying, you know what? This is going to give me the confidence to target people in your jurisdiction.
Shadow wants me to remind you all to like the video because likes are free. Spank the like button. Leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. The subscription button only requires 1 rep. The like button requires a rep on every video. So get your reps in. And make sure you tell a friend or 10 or 20 about the flock of black sheep here. Say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat, especially if you're lurking out there. And thank you very much for all the support, of course. And as always, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting memberships, great ways to support the channel. Becoming a member gives you access to the members-only live streams. Today was one. We did a Q&A. And I might invite people up there sometimes to talk about situations that they want to talk through in their lives. And also, all the support, of course, helps me to pay for Shadow's soy-free hoodie snacks.
Remember, me personally, I'm always looking for what's giving these individuals the confidence to go out there and do these things. Because a lot of times they're regular people. They have a 9-to-5, they have a family, they might be a known person in the community. And at some point, they're sitting there alone in their domicile, and they're fantasizing and coming up, plotting and scheming. And then they're going to take these thoughts and put them into action. So you have to first be confident to risk everything to do that, and almost just have enough desperation that you can't really turn back. Right? I have to do this. So why are they feeling forced to do this? These two individuals, right? You don't have a walkie-talkie so that you can talk to yourself, right? I'm committing a kidnapping. Hello, is anybody on channel 1? No, you're talking to your driver. Or your brother. Or your friend. Or somebody that's being extorted, just like you. Here, I have a little bit more information on that case. Red and 8. What's up, Lisa? Lisa, welcome to the Sleuth Crew. Make yourself at home. Boston, good to see you. Jari, what up? Maui. No Nats. Is that Manda T? One perp, only one person needs doors propped. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. You don't need to prop a door if you have somebody over your shoulder, right? That leaves you with one free arm. You can just open the door and walk out.
Now, one person with dead weight, 150 pounds, is more than you think. It's not as easy. It's not impossible, but it's not as easy as you think. One of the reasons I think too. 2 people.
You're not going to drag Nancy. That's going to hurt your back. Maybe you can prop them and you're wheeling her with something. Can't fit a trash can in the home, so there's no reason to prop it. Wheelchair, maybe. The only real explanation for propping both doors open is because you just want a no resistance escape route, right? And somebody probably thinking ahead. The driver. Right? I have Nancy, I have her. I'm tying her up. Probably duct tape, zip ties. That's when they would call the other person to back in, right? Probably after they covered the camera. Yeah, I have Nancy. She's duct taped and she's laying on the bed right now. What do you...
So Nanos, I think, did say there could be other cameras in the house, but it's completely different about whether they can actually get the footage from those cameras. Now, we know there's thumbnail images from the cameras in the backyard, but those thumbnail images are not even from the night of the abduction. So, hey, it would be awesome for the case if they could ever get that footage, right? But as far as we know, they didn't.
Doing? Well, I'm checking everything out. Boom, they see the camera in the front. Goes back into the room, into the house, grabs their backpack, the gun, whatever, covers the camera, finishes looking around the home, and then calls the driver. All right, we're all good. Back in. I covered the camera. They start taking Nancy out the front door into the vehicle, and that's where she had the heart attack. Has the heart attack, stumbles onto the ground. They pick her up, go back into the home, move the car, right? This is where everything goes bad. They move the car to the back. The driver who moved the car to the back props the gates, or they simply come up with a plan on the spot. One of them runs out to prop the doors, and then they carry her out. Okay, the two perpetrators who carried out the Scottsdale, Arizona wrench attack. Oh, I'm sorry, January, not 29th, January 31st, I apologize. I think I may have said the 29th earlier. Maybe, maybe not. So January 31st, his name was Jackson Sullivan. He was 17 from San Luis, California. And then Skylar LaPale, also, he was 16 years old. They're both being tried as adults from Morro Bay, and I showed you on the map. Multiple felonies, including burglary, aggravated assault, kidnapping. Both were from Luis Obispo County. So does that mean that Red and 8 are from that area? Or are they from Arizona, bringing these individuals into their own state? What would be the most likely scenario? What's up, Remy? Sharon Parker, good to see you. Nancy, welcome. Sensei, what's going on? Hey, we got a super chat. If one person involved, maybe the device was a police scanner. I have considered that. The only problem is the antenna. I haven't been able to find a actual police scanner with that small of an antenna. And it looks like a walkie-talkie to me. But yeah, good point. Let me know. If you can find one that matches that, I'll pay attention, because that was my first assumption, right? What's giving this guy confidence to do what he's doing? Maybe he has a police scanner. Maybe he knows the response time of law enforcement in the area. Maybe that's why he was running around on the 11th. Maybe he wanted the cops to come, right? He's out here triggering all these different things, and then he just kind of goes up and hides. Sets his timer, right? 6 minutes. Wow. And he could just listen to the police scanner. Remember, shortly after Luke was served a search warrant, Texas switched over, and they changed the entire that they broadcast their emergencies over the radio. They were a little behind. Phoenix and the Phoenix area, metro area, has done that for a long time. And even then it's on a 30-minute delay. But I don't know if that's because they believed the perp was using a scanner and listening into them, or they didn't want media acting like night crawlers, right? Chasing down, ambulance chasing, listening to the radio in real time. So I don't know which one they were more concerned about.
User, I think I did hear that, but I think they said that was related to a domestic violence case, not Nancy. I think that is what I heard.
The criminal using it, or the media using it to basically follow. I mean, during the Nancy Guthrie case, they were following the SWAT team, right? You had the SWAT team, law enforcement, FBI, and then you had like people like Brian Entin and JLR right behind them.
Randizzle, tell me, give me a summary here of what is left in this video. I want to hear what intrigued you about this, if you're still here.
They were like all together. What's up, River Life? Okay, so some of the key details in that case. They drove 600 miles from California to Scottsdale. Here's the kicker, you guys. They posed as delivery drivers. Are we missing something about that? I don't know about you, but I don't care if you were the best actor in the world. I'm not answering the door at 2 a.m. for some kind of a delivery. But Carlos, he was a delivery guy. And I guarantee you there's pieces to this that we have no clue about. So they drove 600 miles from California to Scottsdale, posed as delivery drivers. And they didn't even want to be there. They were being extorted, probably sextorted, right? Oh, we got these naked photos of you. If you don't go do this wrench attack, we're going to release this information to the public. Also, they used 3D printed guns. .3D printed guns. And the guns were possibly, they didn't even function. Here's a good example.
Our next guest has proposed a new theory on what could have happened to Nancy Guthrie. We'll sum it up for you, but we warned that this may be difficult for some of people to hear. Our guest believes that whoever is writing TMZ with these notes and looking for Bitcoin in exchange for information is the person who took Nancy. He thinks this is all a burglary gone bad, where the attacker went in, was disturbed, and attacked Nancy. Didn't realize she was going to be there. And
see, even the FBI believes it's like a physical. They were there to rob physical items. I'm starting to think that they were there to force Nancy to pay them money. They were there to rob her. They were there to rob her or rob Savannah or rob the family through Nancy or her personally. So that's why I asked the question, is it possible she has a crypto wallet that we don't know about?
I'd say unlikely.
And the perpetrators in Scottsdale were provided. First, they were extorted, right? You don't have a choice in this. And I don't know any druggie who's going to be like, oh, here's $2,000 so you guys can go buy supplies. It's like, no, I would need that $2,000 so that I can get my fix.
Does anyone think Nancy Guthrie was holding some Bitcoin or Ethereum? Press 1 if you think so. Press 2 if you don't.
So these are people looking at the bigger picture or trying to appear as if they're not lightweights when really that's all the money.
Or press 3 if you think they were trying to use Nancy Guthrie to get Bitcoin from. And here's the other thing about that, right? Do you think Savannah Guthrie has Bitcoin? And honestly, it's not even that easy to buy $1 million of Bitcoin, honestly. A lot of bank accounts have limits. Like, where are you going to buy it from? Coinbase? I think Coinbase has limits to how much you can buy weekly. So how would they ever be able to buy $1 million of Bitcoin when they would have to like do it that way? Now, maybe the FBI, the government, is one of the top 10 holders of Bitcoin. So if you wanted to get it from the government, maybe you could. But also, I think if you get money from the government's Bitcoin, they're going to be after that money for sure.
They had, right? But if two perpetrators are given $2,000 or $1,000 to buy supplies, they may purchase the same jacket. They may purchase the same ski mask, right? Give me 2 of everything. So we have a man in a fuzzy photograph. Let me see if I still have that. A little side by side. Maybe it is 2 different people. Is it this one? Yeah, here we go. All right, looks like the same jacket, kind of coming across the chest, same pants. Everything else is just too blurry to tell. What if we have 2 different individuals being extorted to wrench attack Nancy, which is a type of robbery? We know that she had a bad heart. She passes away. They panic, right? We have 2 plans. One, to take Nancy out the front door. I mean, I just can't explain the blood. What is Nancy doing bleeding at the front door? To me, that could fit in with the delivery driver stuff and possibly luring her out and why they were interested in Carlos. Remember, he said, I'm a delivery driver. I deliver all through there. Well, he's not a fake delivery driver. What's up, Nefertiti's? So I believe these are the same individuals. One is just an extremely fuzzy, poor video, probably caught smack dab in the middle of the camera, deciding whether or not, this is going to be a nighttime or a daytime situation. And that's where they captured the screenshot. Horrible. So you're not going to be able to gather anything from the background or anything. It's just mush. Right? Oh my God, there's this thing here and it's not here. No, what's going on here is for whatever reason, it's bright and it's not being picked up as well here, but it's exactly the same. Same day, I'm not sure, but most likely the same person.
Needed to figure out what to do with her afterward because he wanted to move her before the sun was up, and he probably had about 2 hours to either decide to take her, hide her, or to dispose of her. That means she would be within 2 hours of her home. Now, to get into this theory with more about it, Jonathan Gilliam, who's a former FBI special agent and former...
Yeah, I think the more and more that we go through this investigation, and yes, we're not professionals and it is an amateur investigation, but it is an investigation nonetheless. I'm beginning to believe that Nancy was lured out of her home. And I think maybe that's what the flowers were for. And the reason law enforcement is thinking a possible jammer is because something shut off the camera or disconnected the Wi-Fi momentarily. I think that was just them cutting the power to Nancy's home, putting the power back on after covering the camera.
I don't think they did that either. I think there's just dead zones there, is what I think.
And just really waiting for Nancy, maybe even luring her out some way.
U.S. Navy SEAL. This is his thoughts on what may have happened. Jonathan, I think this makes a lot of sense just given the nature of crime in Tucson and the way that things play out in that city. But give us a little more information about your summary and what you're thinking about the theory.
So when I came up with this, I started looking at, again, the totality of the circumstances. And Katie, I think it's important for everybody to know that I look at all the circumstances. This is one of many theories that I and other people have come up with. And of course, we don't have all the information.
I think we've seen this guy on Megyn Kelly before, haven't we?
Information that law enforcement has. So that's important caveat here. But when I started adding up the behavior of the individual when he was at the front door, which we see there in that picture, he was very, very comfortable at being there. He was not in a rush. He didn't look like he was in a panic because the camera saw him. And that's the way criminals who are comfortable doing these types of things, that's the way they are. But he also showed that he was not that bright in the way that he went and got some weeds and put it over the camera. It didn't really do a whole lot. A smarter, less comfortable criminal probably would have left at that point. So he could have been focused on her. And people are saying, well, he had a full backpack, so he couldn't have.
Let's go to Block Island Girl. I emailed you a picture of 7 different two-way antennas. Yeah, that's what they look like. I have so many laying around the house. That's what they look like. It does not look like a jammer antenna, which I believe they have multiple antennae, and it's a large piece of hardware.
Rob anybody, but he could have 20 bags of some sort inside that backpack to fill up with stuff.
Like the size of a PlayStation.
The more I looked at the timeline, the more it reflects on somebody who, when they got in there, disturbed Nancy. She woke up and they reacted, either injuring her or potentially killing her, and then sat in there for 40 minutes trying to figure out what to do. So at that point,
okay, so that explains the time. Everybody's like, what were they doing in Nancy's home so long? Well, they're panicked. So the blood is because they lured Nancy to the front door. They attacked her, and she most likely passed away at that point. They panicked and said, well, we can't do a wrench attack. She passed away. And I think the person who sent the original ransoms. Now, remember, the first ransom was a deadline for the 5th for $4 million. And if they miss that deadline, the extended deadline is for the 9th. But then they have to pay $6 million. Now, remember, Red and 8 earlier in the day before Nancy was kidnapped attempted to extort 2 young men and were trying to grab $66 million, but failed. They were arrested immediately that day. Is it possible they launched a secondary attack later on at like 1 and 2? Tucson is only 2 hours away from Scottsdale. Could this be Red and 8?
I mean, from the mask and the perp and the Nest Cam, we have no idea, right? I mean, it looked like his skin was what? I can say one thing. It didn't seem like a black person, right? It could have been Middle Eastern. It could have been Indian. It could have been Hispanic. It could have been white. It could have been Italian. Didn't seem like it was a black person. That's pretty much the only person I would rule out, I think, nationality-wise. Or an Asian person. Was that an Asian person? I don't think so. So I'll rule out Asian and I'll rule out black. How about that? Is everyone okay with that ruling? Shadow and I's decree it wasn't a black person or an Asian person
who committed this crime? Right? Most FBI kind of think it's funny the way this guy grabbed the flowers. They look at it like it was kind of amateurish. So if we have the desperation, you have Red and 8. They failed. Their extortion plot to get these 2 young men to do their bidding They were busted. They didn't get the 66 million. What do they need this money for? Why are they so desperate? Is it possible that they then drove 2 hours into Tucson as a backup plan to target Nancy? We're talking about 9 hours apart. FBI says this is amateur hour over here. Or are the kidnappers who are attacking Nancy, are they being extorted?
It's got to be close to 3 o'clock in the morning, and you only have about 2 hours left until twilight, which is about 5:20 to 5:40 a.m. At that point in time. So at that point, I don't think they would want to be moving around with a hostage or a body in their car. And so most likely somewhere within 2 hours, I would think it may even be less, they have been there. And if this person had been somewhere with her or dispose of her body, that means that there will be 2 sets of DNA at that point. And then you would have a definitive match of a DNA and that is with her DNA.
Our next guest has proposed.
Okay, hold on. I'm checking an email I just got. Let's see.
We are following multiple break-ins this weekend, including a robbery in the Hollywood Hills, where police tell NBC4 investigates a 75-year-old man was attacked.
So criminals in California are...
Oh, yeah, I can't play that. I'll get hit with a strike. Copyright strike. This right here is fair use with the news and stuff. Okay, so 2 boys were extorted. They didn't even know each other. They met because of this situation. Red and 8 forced them to meet each other. Right? We're extorting both of you. And look how close they are. What's the anchor point to Red and 8? Is it Arizona or is it here? I feel like it might be here. There's like a weird connection to California as well. Addresses. What's worse, the data has been accessible for months. So this is how it begins, you guys. It starts with the hacking and then the leaking of the Vilius Petkaskis. This is on Cyber News. Major crypto exchange leak exposes user wallets. This was published October of last year. The unprotected database revealed millions of records ranging from 2-factor authentication codes and hashed passwords to wallet addresses. What's worse, the data has been accessible for months. So this is how it begins, you guys. It starts with the hacking and then the leaking of the information. And then anybody who's interested in finding out who has a crypto wallet or cryptocurrency, they go onto the dark web, they access this information, and that's how they do their targeting. All right, boom, there's Nancy. We'll target her. Here's the guy in Scottsdale. We're going to target him. And then you have the individuals who are kind of pulling the strings, like puppeteers, like Red and 8. Now, Red and 8 are going to use their tactics that are very similar to these networks like 6-4, who have evolved into a terroristic type of organization. But really what they do is they focus mainly on sextorting young people, like producing CSAM and things like that. But they're also known, after catfishing and sextorting, making these people go out and do strange things. Like even create CSAM with their own younger family members, commit robberies. Basically what happened in the Scottsdale situation. Can you guys hear that?
I'm going through some talking points for the family. I want to make sure I cover them. I'm not somebody who does well with the script. My local media knows that. We'll get started.
So who gave him the script?
I believe it was around noon yesterday. We got a call to the Guthrie residence that Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old.
Yeah, we need to learn about
missing.
Signal.
We expended a lot of resources for a missing person that we typically always do. Our search and rescue volunteers, our search and rescue teams, other agencies, Star from Border Patrol sent their canines out. They worked tirelessly all day yesterday and all day tonight. I'm sorry, all day yesterday and all last night. To no avail. As I said yesterday, we saw some things at the home that were concerning to us.
Brian Ramblings? We know Brian Ramblings, do we not? In my opinion, this is huge. Dirty Bitcoin sold at 7-Eleven all over that region. Brian Ramblings.
We believe now, after we process that.
Okay, don't forget, this is day 1 right here, guys. So I believe they've already left the scene. I think the scene has already been released. I'm not sure.
Crime scene that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime. And we're asking.
No, that was
the
a couple days
help.
later, I believe.
This community has always stepped up to help us solve some pretty tough crimes. I'm looking for that again. This is a 84-year-old lady who suffers from some physical ailments.
Thank you, Jari.
Has some physical challenges, is in need of medication. Medication that if she doesn't have in 24 hours, it could be fatal. So we make a plea to anyone who knows anything about this, who
satellite phone
has seen something.
That's interesting. Cali girl on fire. Email me anything you have on that, because I have seen a few different satellite phones that kind of match that same antenna. Callie says, the Signal app makes sense and goes with my theory. It's a phone, not a walkie-talkie. I'm listening.
Heard something to contact us.
Thank you, NJ.
We don't we don't need
hit you with that reverse card.
Another bad tragic ending. We need some help. Our team is the best. I couldn't speak any higher. I think you know that. We have done some great work with our partners in the Valley. You know, this community, I have to give a lot of thanks to our law enforcement.
We're the people in the Valley. So he's most likely talking about the FBI.
Agencies all across this valley, whether it's the Tucson Police Department or some of the smaller agencies, they've all reached out. They've all offered to assist. The FBI, all of them. We work so close with them, and they are
Gifts
all
you can send in chat.
We'll continue to work closely with them.
Me, yeah,
But
I think I
really
get
need is
new
this
members.
community to step up and start giving us some calls. Let us know if you've seen something. We are right now at a time, and I apologize. It tells me I talk too softly. We are at
What
a
is
time
this guy's
where
problem?
in this investigation, we're now moving forward where we need to depend on technology. You know, our license plate.
He's thinking this is the last thing I needed. Right? Everything was going so good. I was just coasting along.
Our camera systems throughout the community, anything, everything. And we will download all that data we have from the home, from different pieces of technology we've gotten, and we will use that to our advantage. But the reason I bring this up is that, you know, I'm a cop. I hate politics, but I have to remind our political leaders that they need to quit this banter of every time law enforcement leaders come to you for a need, that you give up these ridiculous remarks about how it's going to be misused. AI is a bad, evil word. The cameras are very bad and evil. I'm tired of that. Those tools in the right hands, with the right minds, and the right approaches are extremely valuable.
What the heck is he talking about? Who's saying that the cameras are bad in this case? No one's saying that. Who said that?
To solving crimes just like this. We need that. We need more staffing. We need a lot of things. But what I really need is I need the community's help with this. So I want to make sure before I take any questions, it is a crime scene. We know that. She needs her daily medication. And anybody that sees anything that even looks, hey, maybe that's her, just take a quick picture. Take a video, send it to us. The number is real easy here locally. It's 911. You can contact our 88.
Yeah, if you went in there for a robbery or a wrench attack and your target passed away, the only way you're launching plan B is if you're extremely desperate. Otherwise, why not just get out there and get out of there and cut your losses? The only reason is, you're extremely desperate for some reason. And that might be why the person demanding the ransom keeps kind of making it lower and lower, right? He wanted 6 million. And then now he just wants a half of a Bitcoin. So I'm sensing some kind of desperation from this person or these people.
Crime and remain anonymous. You can call me, anybody. I am here to take any questions you may have. It will be a little limited.
Perfectly me.
I apologize for that, but we do have a crime that we need to protect its integrity. I have here Sergeant David Stives from our homicide team.
What's up, Laura?
He's been up all night, so bear with us if we are a little bit fuzzy in our answers and responses, but we're both here for any questions you may have. Let's start, please.
Recognizing the limitations, but can you elaborate at all on what makes you believe it's a crime scene as opposed to someone who left home and just couldn't find a way back?
Well, I think I told you she is very limited in her mobility, right? We know she didn't just walk out of there. That we know. There are other things at the scene that indicate there was she did not leave on her own. We know that.
Tucson girl, welcome in. Carlos is still sketchy to me. I think they're all sketchy. Like, I have no clue what is going on with this case. They don't know what a motive is at this point in time. They don't have suspects. They don't even know if Nancy was the one being targeted. Like, we have no idea. And people are just like, well, it's just, there's nothing we can do. Close the book. I feel like the case could be going cold. And Kash Patel said, oh, we would have the DNA back within a few days. Well, they've had the DNA for a few days. Why haven't we heard anything? If that was true, prove it. Why haven't you spoken about the DNA that is at your super lab that is so much more advanced than whatever was going on in Florida? You said on national television, it would take just days to produce results in your effort to make Nanos look like a bitch. So where are these DNA results? It's been days.
If you know that plate readers, is there a vehicle associated with this? When I told you we're now at this phase where we're looking at all the technology, all of that is being evaluated as we speak. Let me say this:
what's up, Private?
We've not just thrown our search and rescue team out there. They're going to be doing some door-to-door with our criminal investigation team. It is not just our homicide unit. All of our criminal investigation detectives. I went out last night to the scene. There were probably 100 cars out there, all from the sheriff's department, all working this case. It takes a lot of manpower and a lot of energy. This team of mine worked throughout the night. They continue to work. David's had zero sleep, but he and his team are working as hard as they can.
Is there anybody else associated with her, a caregiver, family member, acquaintance, who is also missing in somebody?
No. The family, all of the family has been very cooperative with us. They're working with us. They're staying in touch with us. They have complete access to anybody in this department. Savannah has been in touch with us as well. Our hearts go out to them. This is their mom. She's
Green eyes.
Just a great lady, from what I've heard, and I feel for the family.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it, Green Eyes? Right? If you're offering $1.2 million reward for information that leads to Nancy dead or alive, right? If it's somebody like Red and 8 behind the scenes, like the Wizard of Oz or some kind of puppeteer, I think he would be motivated to take out anybody else that might be involved, right? Oh shit, their weapon.
That's what we talked about yesterday, right? Whether they did a Joker thing, taking out the people. Let's see. I'll pause this here. This is Brian's most recent video.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of your support. Please click to subscribe. In this episode, I am continuing to dig in to the situation with the Nancy Guthrie investigation. FBI Director Kash Patel essentially calling out the Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, saying that the FBI was not let in on the investigation for 4 days, saying that he had an FBI plane ready to go to take DNA evidence from the crime scene in Tucson, Arizona, back to Quantico to the lab, but that the sheriff instead decided to send the evidence to the sheriff's office private lab in Florida. So I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes trying to sort out some of these claims. I am going to get to in a second an interview with Sergeant Aaron Cross, who is a current sergeant with the Pima County Sheriff's Office. He's also the president of the union. And it's interesting. You'll hear from him. I've also been talking to other sources within the department who are not fans of the sheriff, by the way, but who are saying that everything that Kash Patel said is also not entirely true, and that the truth is somewhere in the middle between.
Aha! So what do you know? When two untrustworthy people talk, how do you know what is true? And so Brian's saying that even though people don't like Sheriff Nanos, they're also admitting not everything Kash Patel said was true. The truth is somewhere in the middle. That would make sense. Also, while you're here, please remember to like the video, spank the like button, leave your DNA of choice in the like button, and make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell a friend or 20 about the flock of black sheep and the Black Sheep Nation.
What the sheriff is saying and what Kash Patel is saying. And again, you're going to hear Sergeant Cross explain that in a second. And you also hear Sergeant Cross explain what the situation was like that first week after Nancy Guthrie went missing. And he actually called it, I normally don't curse on my show, but this is what he said. He called it a shit show. And that they weren't so much purposely keeping things from the FBI, but communication was such a disaster even within the department that they weren't even communicating with each other. So I'll get to that in a second. Something else first I want to play for you, though, is there's new sound, a new interview with Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. So he's obviously over the Department of Justice. My News Nation colleague, Ali Bradley, had a chance to sit down with him and asked him about the Nancy Guthrie investigation. And I found this to be particularly interesting because his tone and what he said was very, very different from what FBI Director Kash Patel said. He took a much more even tone, didn't really call out the sheriff's office, and basically said that they are trying to work together. So listen to what Todd Blanche said.
Another thing that we've been really substantially covering is the Nancy Guthrie case. Obviously, the DOJ is involved. The FBI right now coming out with some new information and kind of having some issues with the Pima County Sheriff. So how is the DOJ resolving the apparent breakdown in coordination between the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department regarding the handling of the critical DNA evidence there?
We have worked closely. The FBI has worked closely since the day that this happened with the local law enforcement. And there's been reports of friction. I've seen those reports. We are here to help. And the FBI, President Trump authorized and directed us to do everything that we can to help that investigation. This is at its heart a local investigation because of the nature of this type of potential crime. But the FBI remains exactly where we've been, which is we're ready, willing, and able to help as much as we can. We don't like interagency squabbles. Nobody likes that. That doesn't help the investigation. But we are in a complete cooperative mode with the local law enforcement.
Do you think that the FBI should take over the investigation?
Well, I don't think or not think that. I think that any investigation like this should be done by a coordinated approach, right? There's tools that the local law enforcement has that the FBI doesn't have. There's tools that the FBI has that local law enforcement doesn't have. So in any investigation like this, it's not somebody taking over or taking a back seat. It's working together to solve the crime.
So again, I just found that interesting because it's so different from what Kash Patel said when he was on Sean Hannity's podcast. And, you know, Kash Patel is the head of the FBI. Todd Blanche is the acting attorney general, both extremely high-level federal law enforcement positions. And Todd Blanche wasn't going where Kash Patel went in terms of trying to call out the local law enforcement in Pima County. So just kind of interesting. And again, you're going to hear Sergeant Aaron Cross sort of explain how the truth here may lie somewhere in the middle. So I want to get to my interview now. Sergeant Aaron Cross, again, he is the Union President, Pima County Sheriff's Office, also an active sergeant right now. Aaron, it's nice to see you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. I wanted to get your reaction to Kash Patel's comments, essentially saying that the FBI was kept out of the investigation for the first 4 days. And then I never knew this until he said it, that there was apparently a plane on standby to take the DNA to Quantico. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I heard that as well, and so I made some calls and just asking around, trying to get answers as to why they thought that. It's pretty well known that the sheriff is no big fan of the FBI, going back from 2016. I think after speaking to many of my members that were close to the investigation, I think what happened was it was just poor communication, and their perception was probably that they were being shut out. Granted, I have no reason to defend the sheriff. I just want to put that out there. So I'm just calling balls and strikes. But what I gathered was that the investigation in the weeks that followed was described to me as being a disorganized mess. The command staff was completely running.
So Sergeant Cross here, he's the union leader. He's saying it was really just a miscommunication that the FBI felt left out. Let's see how he explains himself here.
The investigation, there wasn't a lot of tracking. For example, some of the detectives were told to drop everything and go speak to witnesses or someone who may have known something, and they'd get out there only to find out that the person had already been spoken to 4 or 5 times. There was just no tracking. And so there was a lack of communication, not only, it sounds like, from agency to agency, but from unit to unit.
So lack of communication from agency to agency and unit to unit. Well, whose fault's that? The leaders of each agency and each unit. That's who's responsible for that. A good leader is responsible for everything that happens under his or her command. And a good leader takes extreme ownership.
And so I think that's what manifested itself into the FBI believing that they were being shut out. It was just leadership incompetence, frankly.
Explain, because you're saying you don't believe that the FBI was totally boxed out, but you also believe that the sheriff has an ego and didn't really want the FBI involved. Like, explain what you mean.
Yeah. The ego prevents the FBI from taking over lead. And maybe probably a delay in the formation of the task force. So that's the why there. But the information, the lack of information sharing with the FBI, I believe, was just a byproduct of the chaos. Kind of, as the detective told me, that they were just going in circles and not even information sharing amongst units inside CID. So if they're not information sharing amongst units appropriately, I doubt they're information sharing with other agencies as well.
So, and here's the thing about that. So people communicate what they think is a priority. So clearly it wasn't a priority for them to be communicating in that way, right? And to make sure that's not the case, so that you don't botch things, it's up to the heads the managers and leaders and whomever in the departments to communicate to the people under them, hey, make sure you're writing things down and communicating with other people. But if they weren't directed that, whose fault is that? That's the leader's fault.
Interesting you say this, because I spoke to someone else within the department who, like you, is not a fan of the sheriff, but also wasn't fully on board with Kash Patel's comments at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like the truth is somewhere in the middle of what Kash Patel said and what the sheriff said.
Yes. And that's what I'm kind of getting to, is that I believe that the FBI likely feels as though they were kind of boxed out those first few days. I believe that. And you probably saw that in some of the anonymous sources those first few weeks. Some of the federal agents were talking to media saying that they weren't being brought into the investigation. But again, speaking with the several detectives, I believe that it was just simply there was no real information sharing those first few weeks, particularly the first week. It was described to me as,
so it means it wasn't a priority, right? They didn't tell them it was a priority to information share. So that's one of those things where that's a way Sheriff Nanos can box out the FBI with plausible deniability, right? Like, oh, we didn't know. We didn't know we were supposed to be sharing with the FBI. Hard to prove one way or the other, right? But that's why it's a classic way to box someone out and manipulate with plausible deniability.
Frankly, a shit show. Those are the words they used. So, I mean, if our own detectives aren't speaking to each other about which witnesses they've already spoken to, what chance is there for agencies that aren't even located inside the same floor in the administration building? So I think they probably knew that the sheriff didn't like the FBI and believed that the lack of information they were getting was because of that. And in reality, it's just through leadership and competence.
Yeah.
Somehow I removed it from the channel here. The hell happened?
Did this whole investigation into like a fake law enforcement agent interviewing her about the Nancy Guthrie case. They like did fingerprinting in her house. Come to find out it was a real FBI agent. But I remember just thinking, like, how is everybody not on the same page here, where you have the sheriff's office investigating a possible fake police officer, but it actually was a real FBI agent, which I guess kind of goes back to, and that was in the early days. So that must have been during that time when it was just, there was no good communication happening.
Yeah, it's a huge waste of bandwidth as well, having us investigate that instead of focusing on the investigation, of course. And it's just credit to just poor organization, not a good steady hand at the wheel. One of the detectives I spoke to described it as though they were just going in circles. And the units that were in charge of investigating it didn't have the agency to do what they felt needed to be done. They were simply getting, it sounded like to me, just getting orders from command staff and little side quests to go do instead of just hunkering down and figuring out what they need to do, what they had, what were the next best steps.
What are you hearing from the deputies now? I mean, obviously, this is now, it's been a national story, but it's now back in the national spotlight. Kash Patel saying what he said. I mean, what's sort of the word amongst the deputies?
It's outside of the task force, it's really business as usual. There's not a lot to say. There haven't, to our knowledge, been any real breaks in the case, which is unfortunate. So there really hasn't been much discussion. There's been no real buzz inside the department about anything. So and perhaps some of that is because the task force is keeping a tight lid on it. Maybe it's hard to say.
When Sheriff Nanos said that in his statement response to Patel, he said that there was a member of the task force that was part of this since the very beginning. What does he mean? I mean, what does he mean by that? Is that actually a detective and not an FBI agent?
Yeah, I saw Michael Ruiz posted something about that. He did some digging, and I believe what that may have been was we have detectives that are tasked out to federal agencies.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they're there to help write state warrants on some of their cases. And I think maybe it was one of them, one of their task force guys that were out on scene and kind of maybe relaying information. But and I also asked about the DNA for your earlier question about the plane and ready to take off. From what I understand, by the time that the FBI was really partnering with us in earnest a few days later, the DNA that was located inside the home had already been shipped off to the labs. And so while there were other things located afterwards, famously the gloves, and those could have been shipped out to Quantico, from what I understand, the things located from the home were already on their way to Florida.
Yeah, and to be fair here, most of the DNA experts who I've talked to, and I was just, CeCe Moore's a really good one. She actually just texted me. Some of these private labs do have the same capabilities, if not better capabilities than Quantico. So I don't know for sure that sending it to Quantico really would have made a difference.
Yeah, I've consistently heard the same thing from people that I trust, that these labs are extremely capable and sometimes have some cutting edge technology that Quantico doesn't have yet. I can't speak to that. That's just what I've been told. However, it comes with a cost to Pima County. These processes cost a fair amount of money, so they're not willing to do it for free like Quantico is.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you're the sheriff, why not, send it on the plane? That it's going to the FBI, so they are doing a good job, and it would be free essentially. You think that just goes back to him having a beef with the FBI?
I think so. You can go back to the 2016 videotape of the sheriff discussing the FBI. You can see the contempt on his face. I think he refers, I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of how we're the real policemen or we have real detectives. So you can tell the dismissive tone in his voice. So I believe he still harbors some of that resentment and perhaps some of that played here. But again, to be fair, it sounds like the DNA was already on its way to the lab. Now, don't get me wrong. I think once the video was released with the perpetrator on the stoop, I think that was the time that it probably should have been decided to hand this over to the feds completely.
So basically, they're both saying that the private lab is just as capable as Quantico, so they don't really seem to have as much of a problem with it. And again, CeCe Moore, she didn't have a problem with it either. Probably also partially because she works for a private lab herself, or maybe she runs her own private lab. So that could influence their decisions. But interesting to note, right? They don't think it was a problem at all.
And us take a support role, but that decision was made differently.
So you think it should have been handed over fully?
Absolutely. I mean, you heard the director in his interview. He had hundreds, plural, of agents ready to assist. I think we have 96 detectives. If we put every detective on this case, it still wouldn't match that amount of manpower. And I am fairly confident that they would have better tracking for the investigation than what we displayed inside. So I think it would have been in the best interest of the case to hand it over. But
can you remind me about this 2016 issue that the sheriff had with the FBI? Because we talk a lot about the sheriff not liking the FBI and that there was an issue in the past, but it's been a while. So can you give me a refresher on what was that all about?
Sure, that was a RICO investigation into misuse.
And again, we went over the RICO investigation where they were investigating the misuse of funds.
And it resulted in the indictment of one of the chiefs, a suicide of a second chief, and Sheriff Nanos, who was interim sheriff at the time, was implicated but ultimately not charged in that case. But he, you could tell in that interview from, I believe, Kagan 9, a local channel, they sat down with him and he let him have a piece of his mind. And so I think that he credits that with him losing his first election in 2016. And I don't believe the sheriff has forgotten it.
And you think that connects back to him not cooperating early on with, not bringing the FBI in fully with Guthrie?
In my opinion, the opinion of nearly everyone I speak to, absolutely.
Interesting. How does the jurisdiction work? Because a lot of people, you mentioned that you think that he should have handed it over to the FBI, but the FBI apparently can't just take it over on their own, right? Like, how do these things typically work?
Correct.
What I saw was Nanos would have to hand it over, and it would have to be a written request from the Guthrie family. That's what I heard. But let's see what Sergeant Cross says.
There's a federal crime. They take a support role. So we could ask them to take over. And if we did that, it sounds like they'd be more than willing to do that. But unless we have information that Nancy was taken across state lines or some sort of federal nexus, the FBI are essentially helpless to come in and take over. So it's ultimately right now up to the sheriff.
Right. That's what I heard. That was up to the sheriff or a written request from the Guthrie family. And that's the other thing. In these cases, when you're searching the desert, they can often find missing persons from other unsolved cases. And in fact, you might find a few of those before you find anything in relation to Nancy. And we were listening to someone that said that the other day, right? They were saying, oh yeah, by the way, there's tons of bodies in the desert. Tons. So keep that in mind.
Think the sheriff would ever voluntarily hand it over now? Say, look, it's been 3 months. Let's.
And here's the other thing. So you find bones now. Would Nancy's body be fully decomposed to bones in 3 months? That really depends, right? Depends on where they found it, how much exposure it's getting, right? And what's our frame of reference? How long was Celeste in that frunk? 5 to 6 months, right? And she wasn't fully decomposed. So if you're looking for Nancy, probably not fully decomposed, I would say, unless it was getting a lot of exposure and gotten by animals or something.
I mean, I know they're already involved, but let's let them take full control.
No. Never.
And why is that?
Well, as we spoke to in our first conversation, if you remember, I described that there's the sheriff's ego is difficult to describe, the size of it. And so I think that he would never relinquish this to the FBI, not without massive public pressure.
Isn't there already public pressure? Or is that just how it feels on the, I mean, you're in town. Is that just how it feels on the outside, or?
I don't know what level that would need to reach to overcome the sheriff's ego, but I haven't seen anything that would match it at this point.
Do you still have faith that this will be solved?
I think so eventually. That's just the question is, how long will it take? Are we talking months? Are we talking years? I feel bad for the investigators. They were putting.
So a body typically decomposes in soil to a skeleton within 1 to 5 years if buried without a coffin. So 1 to 5 years in soil. It says 51 to 64 days, only skin, cartilage, and bones remain. Skeletonization begins at 51 to 64 days, but it's not complete for 1 to 5 years, apparently. Acidic soil speeds up decomposition, whereas neutral or sandy soil can preserve skeletons for years. So, what does Arizona sound like? Sounds like sandy soil or sand, but it can preserve things for years.
A big hole. They got to the scene late. The family had already been on scene for a few hours, and moving things, trampling things, whatever, when people are going through looking for their mother. And then you had patrol assets, search assets on the grounds. And so when you're talking about a case where the perpetrator is pretty careful and doesn't leave a lot of things behind, that means you need to preserve what you have even more. But again, it's hard to blame the searchers because the family was pretty insistent that this was a walkaway as well. And so they were doing what they were trained to do and searching, looking for Nancy. And I believe it got to the point where once they didn't find her in the area, combined with the blood on the stoop, that's when everybody kind of decided, all right, we have something else here.
So see, what I heard was the opposite, that the family was pushing them to say, look, it's not a walkaway, and that the investigators in the very beginning were considering it a walkaway, but the family was having to remind them over and over again, like, no, she wouldn't just walk away. She's in bad health, and she doesn't have cognitive issues. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, that's not the information that I gathered today.
What did you? Yeah, if you don't mind explaining a little more, what did you hear today?
Just that the family believed that she was out there, that she'd walked away.
Right, in the very beginning.
Let's rewind this here. I'll put it to normal speed so I can pay attention properly.
Moving things, trampling things, whatever, when people are going through looking for their mother. And then you had patrol assets, search assets on the grounds. And so when you're talking about a case where the perpetrator is pretty careful and doesn't leave a lot of things behind, that means you need to preserve what you have even more. But again, it's hard to blame the searchers because the family was pretty insistent that this was a walkaway as well. And so they were doing what they were trying to do and searching, looking for Nancy. And I believe it got to the point where once they didn't find her in the area, combined with the blood on the stoop, that's when it's everybody kind of decided, all right, we have something else here.
So see, what I heard was the opposite, that the family was pushing them to say, look, it's not a walk away. And that the investigators in the very beginning were considering it a walk away, but the family was having to remind them over and over again, like, no, she wouldn't just walk away. She's in bad health, and she doesn't have cognitive issues. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, that's not the information that I gathered today.
What did you, if you don't mind explaining a little more, what did you hear?
All right, so they're disagreeing about, so Guthrie family, according to Brian, said no, she wouldn't walk away. But Sergeant Cross says, no, that's not what I heard. In the beginning, at least. So let's see.
Today.
Just that the family believed that she was out there, that she'd walked away.
Right, just in the very beginning?
Correct.
Okay.
So when they say family, though, when Sergeant Cross says family, who does he mean? Does he mean Annie and Tommaso? Does he mean Savannah? Does he mean Cameron? Who does he mean?
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that's a new development. That's different than what we've heard in the past. And I guess that could explain some things. But I just wonder why they would say that if she, if she didn't have any cognitive issues or anything.
Yeah, it's hard to say when people are under stress. They're obviously very worried about their mother, I imagine. And so, they were hoping for the best, that she was just nearby and, the next neighborhood over or street over or something.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, I guess maybe initially, just in the shock of it too, like you would just assume, like, even though I know my mom wouldn't just walk away if I showed up and she was gone, maybe that's just my first thought would be like, oh, is she out? Did she walk away? I mean, maybe that's just where your mind goes no matter what.
Yeah. You hope for the best, fear the worst, probably type of a situation. So, and I mean, it would be very neglectful to not at least search the area. I mean, who would show up to a scene like that and immediately jump to, okay, Nancy's been kidnapped, so let's start working this as a kidnap. It would be absurd to jump to that conclusion. You work with what's most likely first, and what's most likely 99 times out of 100, if not greater, is that she's in the area, and we just need to go find her. Maybe, fell down in the depths.
And that is something we've heard, right? When these kinds of things happen, it is generally a walk away when it's the elderly person. So I can see why they thought that at first. But the second you see that blood in the front step, are you still going to think that? I wouldn't think so. At the very least, you're going to think, well, now this is an emergency, right? Again, if they saw that, that's got to be what they think. Even though generally it is a walk away a lot of times with the elderly. But once you see that blood, you got to change your thinking, right?
Desert area, let's get meds over to her and get her back to her family.
What do you think about the fact? I mean, should there be search? There was never really widespread searches from what I saw. I mean, maybe a little bit in the beginning. We saw a helicopter. We saw the dogs out for like a couple of days. But do you think there should have been a larger search?
That's really hard for me to say. I mean, I wasn't on scene. We didn't have information that she was very ambulatory. But again, I've worked cases where I received the same information, that there was a sole person who can barely walk, and we found them 6 hours later, 12 miles away. So it's really hard to say. You can always look back. Hindsight's 20/20, and I'm not sure, and I can't speak to the extent of the search.
Because if that's so, Rooster, I will look into doing that. Dara, thank you for becoming a member, Dara. Shadow and I appreciate this. You will now have access to the members-only live streams. The first one, or there was one earlier today, but you are very invited to the one next week. So thank you, Dara. Shadow and I appreciate your support. And as always, everyone else out there, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and super chat, super stickers, and becoming a channel member like Dara, or gifting a channel membership. Great ways to support the channel.
I know that they finally got the plane up after a few hours, and so that makes me feel better about it. That plane is fantastic. And in that area, they probably would have been able to see her if she was in the area.
From what I'm hearing from my sources, it's been that, there's no suspects, and there's still really, they're going through tips still, and it's not a cold case, but there's not like a working theory of what happened. Is that the same thing you're hearing?
I get that sense. As I've said before, I purposely stayed away from the task force. I don't want to risk slipping information that they have, to get them in trouble or myself. So, but we all kind of have the sense that, we're waiting for a break and hoping for a break. Maybe one of the tips pans out, or, we find something, God forbid we find her body. At this point, that would obviously, galvanize the case. But at this point, everybody kind of has the sense that we're not really moving very much right now.
Where do things stand with the sheriff in terms of, we heard about the recall effort. We've heard there's the Board of Supervisors has been asking questions. And where do things stand on that front in terms of, people want to boot him out essentially?
Yeah, the recall, the desire to have him removed inside Pima County is certainly there. It's the logistics, as I've said elsewhere, the logistics of the recall make it nigh impossible. For example, every sheet of signatures can only take 10 signatures, handwritten signatures, and then the back of each sheet needs to be individually notarized. So you're talking 130,000 signatures to be safe.
Wow.
Each signature page takes 10 signatures. Do the math of how many notarizations you need. So that's it's going on, unknown how well they're doing. But the Board of Supervisors is a different issue entirely, though.
What's the status there?
From what I understand, and I've been told recently, so he submitted his response to the board as they are required under the state statute. Originally, the response was not notarized as required, sworn to, as required. From what I understand, he has subsequently filed or sent over an affidavit swearing that what he sent them is true, which creates real problems for him because the content of his original communication had things in it that were just factually not true, materially not true, and provably not true. So, and now we have ourselves a situation where he has sworn to things that are provably not true, which in the state of Arizona is also called perjury, which is a felony. And so earlier today, our union communicated to the...
So it looks like, Rooster, the 911 calls are sealed in this case. So I don't know if an FOIA thing would get around that or not. But during a recent discussion, Gilliam suggested authorities could be keeping the recordings sealed to protect aspects of the case that may still be active behind the scenes. I don't think we're going to hear the 911 calls for a while, and there could be a myriad of reasons for that. There's probably some investigative information in there that the detectives don't want out to the public, Gilliam said. So don't hold your breath. I think it's going to be quite a while before we hear anything like that. I wonder if an FOIA can get around that.
Board of Supervisors via letter asking them at their meeting on Tuesday to refer this matter to the Attorney General for investigation for felony perjury and to Sheriff Nannis.
And they will, that's this coming Tuesday?
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, how awkward of a situation is it for you guys? I mean, now you've got the deputies union asking the Board of Supervisors to refer something to the Attorney General saying that essentially your boss committed a felony, yet you're still working for the guy. I mean, what is that like?
The whole situation is weird. because when we found out from his El Paso background, he shouldn't even been a cop in Arizona ever in the first place. It's the whole situation is very bizarre. He's in a position that's unique because if he were any other position inside the department, he'd be fired for lying about his background, for the content in his background. You can't be a policeman when you threaten to kill a witness against you in internal affairs and then lie about it in the internal affairs investigation, and then lie on your applications. So really this lie to the board about why he left El Paso is just the latest in the long string of things that he said that simply.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, it's wild that Sheriff Nanos is even the sheriff. It's probably only because it's an elected position he even is, honestly. If it wasn't for that, he wouldn't be able to be there by merit, especially when the entire department doesn't like him, or at least the people doing these anonymous confidence votes, right?
True.
I keep thinking about Savannah Guthrie and like the situation she's in, because obviously she's heartbroken about her mom. And you want this to be a good investigation and you know, an effective investigation. And she hasn't spoken out about the sheriff or law enforcement, because I'm just wondering, if I'm her, you're probably thinking that doesn't do any good. It's just a distraction.
Yeah.
But she must
I
be
agree.
seeing all of this.
Yeah, I agree. And I can't imagine it instills a lot of faith in her, that this was handled appropriately. I think if there's some solace to it, it's now in the hands of a joint task force. That would make, if I were in her position, that would make me feel better, that the task force has taken it over. My preference, of course, as I mentioned earlier, would be that the feds have it completely, that they're primary and we're an assist role. But a joint task force is better than nothing.
And just for people, remind people again what joint task force means, because it's still the sheriff in charge, but explain it. It's the FBI also, right?
Correct. So we still have primary on the case. However, we have sent or tasked 4 or 5 detectives and a sergeant to go over and work essentially out of the FBI building, which is good, because one of the things that was often complained about initially was that there were just too many fingers in the pie from command. So by moving them outside of our administration building to the FBI building, working hand in glove with federal agents, it gets them kind of underneath the thumb of our command staff from interfering, and lets them just kind of do their job and go where the case is taking them.
Are they still on the Guthrie case full time?
Yes.
Okay. So you've got a number of people, this is all they do.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if I were Savannah, I mean, that would make me feel better too. I mean, it's not like, it's not just part of the other detectives' everyday work. You've got a team just dedicated to this.
Yeah.
How long do you think that can go on?
I don't know if there's any hard timeline about it. I think they're going to stay on the task force until the case is declared cold, if and when that happens. And I couldn't even speculate as to when that would be. I mean, the amount of tips that we got, we're in the thousands. So it's going to take some time to comb through all those.
Really appreciate Sergeant Cross for taking the time to talk with me. And again, he's in kind of a strange situation. They all are there, the union there. Everyone in the union, all the deputies voted that they have no confidence in the sheriff. Yet that's their boss and who they work for.
And again, there's a missing part of that story. There are some people that abstained from the vote. That never gets told in the story, right?
It's kind of just a strange dynamic there. I was thinking about this, for those of you who missed this, and I think it comes into play now. About a month ago, I did an interview with a source close to the investigation, had to conceal this person's identity because they could get in trouble for speaking out. But some of what they said, I think, connects back and is relevant to everything we're discussing now with the sheriff and the FBI, and the fact that it was just apparently a mess for that first week after Nancy Guthrie went missing. So I wanted to play for you again what this source told me, because again, it just kind of comes into play with the big picture of everything that we're hearing now. What would you say are the biggest mistakes when it comes to the Nancy Guthrie investigation, from what you know?
Speaking with some people that actually know the intimate knowledge of this investigation have told me that there was an immediate rush to judgment on what was happening at that scene, and it was that Nancy had somehow wandered off. And so they rushed to that judgment, stayed with that judgment, and then ran the investigation as if this was a search and rescue issue, opposed to a possible criminal issue.
From what you know, were the initial people who responded inexperienced?
From what I understand, the people that were there on the scene were not 10-year homicide detectives. They didn't have a lot of experience.
So this doesn't make sense to me, because how long are you going to think she just walked away when there's blood on the front step? Seriously. How long are you going to think there wasn't foul play while there's all this blood on the front step? What do you think, chat? You tell me.
In homicide at that point, to include the supervisor, who, from my understanding, never investigated homicide before being installed as the supervisor for the homicide unit.
So the supervisor who first responded to Nancy Guthrie's house had never investigated a homicide?
Correct.
How is that possible?
Well, so you have decisions made by people that will install friends and people that can do stuff for them, opposed to people that are there on their merit and can do the job correctly.
Do you think not enough evidence was collected?
The fact that detectives had to return to that location not once but several times leads me to believe that they should have handled it differently. They should have kept the scene secure.
Do you get the sense right now that there's anyone that they're seriously looking at?
The people I've talked to that are still in the know on this investigation tell me that there's no direct suspect right now, no name on the table.
Is that shocking?
Not with how the investigation's gone so far. I mean, you have individuals that are either lucky as hell or more cunning than a lot of people have seen in the past. If you take the first, extremely lucky, maybe his luck will run out, but so far it hasn't. But if you take the second one that was extremely cunning, there's a chance that he may have covered his tracks so well that we may not find out what happened right now.
Obviously, we're hiding your identity right now because you could get in a lot of trouble for speaking out this way. What would you want to say to the sheriff if you could?
I would say that he ruined a great department. It's savable if he steps aside, and I would ask him to step aside.
How would you describe morale at the sheriff's office right now?
I would say right now it's extremely low. This is the lowest I've seen it. There's a lot of embarrassment, especially with the news conversations that I've had with Nanos, his interaction with the media.
When the press conferences started happening and the interviews with Nanos, what were you thinking?
Shut your mouth. Stop talking. That's pretty much what we were all saying, is why is he out there saying that?
The no confidence vote, I mean, that every single deputy in the union voted that.
And I must admit also, if you're Savannah Guthrie watching this, how pleased are you that the people that are supposed to be looking for your mother are having so much infighting like this? It can't be much confidence for Savannah Guthrie in the solving of her case, right? I wouldn't think so. It's not really what I would want to hear. If my mom was missing, do I want to hear the police department bickering behind closed doors about the chief of police or the sheriff? I wouldn't think so. And I guess I would think, I really don't care about your squabbling. Find my mother, is what I would think. And I would say, if it's really that bad, then the Sheriff Nano should go away. Right? That's what I would say if it was my mother.
They don't have confidence in the sheriff. I think to a lot of outsiders was like, wow, I mean, every single deputy.
Yeah, this isn't the first no confidence vote that we've done. So it should have been no surprise to him, especially with what's been going on. So not only our local community, Arizona in general, but just the nation now sees that we have no faith in Chris Nanos.
Is it awkward for people working there?
I think everyone is walking on eggshells.
What would people in the department want to say to Savannah?
Just to explain to Savannah that just because we have an incompetent lead doesn't mean that we don't care, that we don't want Nancy to be brought home safely, and that we're not with her in this.
I can't help but to think there's a lot of people in the Pima County Sheriff's Department that are kind of using this opportunity to get some of their agenda across too, right? It's not even about Nancy. It's about they're trying to get their agenda across, or they're trying to settle scores because they're not very happy with Sheriff Nanos. Some of this doesn't have that much to do with Nancy, really. I think some of it has more to do with their internal politics, and they're using this case as a vehicle. Now, it does involve Nancy a little bit, of course, but I think their intention is a little bit different, is what it seems like to Shadow in me.
We are completely with her and her family on this.
So at the end of the day, you just hope that these issues with the investigation did not impact things long term when it comes to finding Nancy Guthrie, when it comes to there being some kind of resolution with this case. I'm obviously going to stay on it. I've been talking to people every day, but in terms of a real update when it comes to, is there a suspect? Are there any real strong leads? The reason I don't have any updates on that front is because from what I'm told by my sources on the inside, there's just no new information, which is unfortunate because every day I know we all hope that there's going to be answers and that there's going to be resolution for the Guthrie family. And I always think about them through all of this. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Appreciate you guys for following along. I'll keep you guys posted with any updates. Hopefully you guys checked out my special that was on the CW. We worked really, really hard on that. Again, just trying to keep all of this alive, keep awareness on the Nancy Guthrie case while a lot of other people and reporters move on. So if you missed the special, it's on the News Nation YouTube now. I'm pretty sure you can check it out.
Oh, so that's what we saw. All right. So that's our buddy Brian Entin, of course. And yeah, I have no doubts morale is low in that department for several reasons, right? You have a bunch of people that don't like Sheriff Nanos. It's probably become a political thing as well. Nanos, the Democrat, the rest of them are probably Republicans. And they're just like, blip. They are not happy. So they think, you know what? What better way to get Nanos gone than to use some of this? And again, it's another thing where there's plausible deniability for them too, right? They'll say, well, this is about Nancy. And how can you say to them, no, you're wrong. It's not about Nancy. You're just trying to further your own agendas. You can't prove it one way or the other. I'm saying the people in the department there, it's not just that, I bet. I think there's other elements of it going on too. Anything where there's votes involved and there's R's or D's next to the name, it becomes a party issue. Almost always. And that just kind of adds fuel to the fire of whatever issues are already there. And if it's not the case there, then that's the one place in history that the political part doesn't come into play. And don't get me wrong, Shadow and I are no fans of Sheriff Nanos. Let's not get that twisted. He's very egotistical, narcissistic, vindictive, etc. So he doesn't really deserve defense, per se. But more than one thing can be true at the same time. He's vindictive and doing a bad job. And maybe these other people are also like... And the reason I say that is because some of what they're saying, some of it doesn't go as far. Like, they don't seem to be thinking about Savannah as much, I would say, or the family. Now, it's always best to steer clear from the old law enforcement for the very most part. It's around the area. Arizona, maybe Texas. But I don't know. I mean, Sergeant Cross kind of defended Nanos by accident. Or not really by accident, but just being truthful about the miscommunication thing. So maybe that was Nanos. Maybe that was the department lead's problem. Who knows? El Paso, Texas, or El Paso, Arizona? I think El Paso's in Texas, right? Or there could be one in both, for all I know. Yeah, that makes sense. Shadow doesn't mind the Bee Gees. She didn't see Shadow burning his disco records in the early 1980s. But all right, folks, we've had a longer video today. It's about time to wrap it up. Everything's bigger in Texas, song bits. And all my exes are in Texas, like I'm George Strait. So Tina, Marina, song bits, Dana, Heather, Rooster, Kev, Cotton, Jules. Welcome, Jules. I thought we'd seen Jules here before, but welcome, Jules. Julie Bug, Autumn, and Autumn Elizabeth. And Tina, of course. And Linda. Hopefully we get some Sweet Caroline and some Sometimes You Gotta Dance, Reagan. That's right, there's Autumn Elizabeth. And Ruth, have a great night as well. Till next time, folks. Big hearts in Texas too, Rooster, they say. Have a great night, Annie, as well. Till next time, folks. Till next time. There's a Texas girl. Texas Tiff. That sounds like a good bar name. Texas Tiff. Have a good one, Matt.